Welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Chapter 21 Perception of Strength. Seeing Garp's expression, Barrett couldn't help but get angry and said sarcastically, as expected. You are the ones who have the final say on everything, no wonder you dare to kill the family members of your colleagues. That's right. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed that the Admiral's family would be killed. Jin understood what he meant and looked at Garp and the group of soldiers with disdain. Kid, what are you talking about? Upon hearing this, Garp immediately stopped playing and looked directly at Barrett and Jin. Barrett was no longer afraid when he saw this and simply reached out his hand to Garp. Let me join in. 2 contributions can make a bigger contribution. The Navy is just like that anyway, and everyone knows it. It's just our bad luck to meet the Navy. Jin also stretched out his hands with a sarcastic look on his face. Do you think we dare not arrest you? A major general behind Cap yelled, looking coldly at Barrett and the other man. We have all surrendered, but you still don't arrest us. You can just charge us with whatever crime you want. Use the most serious one. This way you will get more credit. Barrett was relentless and continued to make sarcastic remarks. You. The Rear Admiral's face turned red with anger and he looked at Barrett angrily. Enough. At this moment, Garp roared, and a shocking momentum burst out, shocking the Major General behind him, Barrett, and Jin. Moreover, Barrett also keenly realized that this was the domineering hockey. The guess of the fans in the previous life was indeed correct. Garp possessed the domineering hockey. Bolt, you step back first. Garp gave an order to the Major General behind him. Yes, Lieutenant General Garp. Bolt bowed respectfully and stepped back behind Cap. Kid, I was wrong just now, but I want you to tell me what you meant by what you just said. This time, Garp's apology was extremely sincere, without the cynicism from before. Barrett also wanted to leave early, so he just said as a bystander, I think you have seen that we just came from Albania. Your navy was killing each other over there. A vice admiral killed a woman and a child. Some people there said that they were Admiral Zepha's wife and children. Later, General Zepha came out and went crazy. He grabbed the vice admiral and beat him up. The port collapsed and many people ran away, so we ran away too. Quote. You mean, a lieutenant general killed Zepha's wife and children? Garp's expression froze, and he looked like a powder keg about to explode. Bolt behind him also had an expression of disbelief on his face, staring blankly at Barrett. Uncle, there is no need for me to lie to you. Just go to Albania and ask anyone about this matter and you will know the answer. Barrett said. This is a serious matter. Garp muttered to himself, his face becoming very serious. Lieutenant General Garp, let's go over and take a look. Bolt said. Uncle, can we leave now? Barrett asked. Little brother, I'm sorry about what happened before, but if you become pirates and get caught by me in the future, I won't be polite. Garp waved his hand and asked people to move the boat out of the way. Uncle, I'm only 14 years old. It's still too early for me to go out to sea. But when I go out to sea, don't let me beat you up if I see you. After the boat was more than 10 meters away from the Garp warship, Barrett responded loudly and arrogantly. Brat, next time I meet you, I will let you experience the iron fist of love. Garp shouted while picking his nose. Barrett looked at Garp who was getting farther away, and couldn't help but patted Jin beside him, and said softly, Jin, you have felt the world's top strength today. He couldn't help but clench his fists when thinking about his powerlessness today. This feeling of frustration made him very uncomfortable. I will work out as hard as I can. Jin also clenched his fists, with an unwilling look on his face beneath the mask. Today, Garp's aura just burst out, almost making him unable to move. This made him feel very unwilling and aggrieved, and he wanted to become stronger quickly. Let's go to the New World first and find the Roger pirates. We can learn a lot of things we want on his ship. Barrett thought about it and decided to follow the original story and stay on Roger's ship for 2 years. There are many strong people on Roger's ship, including several of the world's top strong people. He and Jin can get guidance in any aspect, and the speed of becoming stronger can be increased many times. After meeting Garp today, he suddenly realized that conspiracies and tricks were nothing but paper in the face of powerful strength. Just like Kaido and Luffy in the original work, they both recklessly rushed all the way and finally became emperors and kings. If they wanted territory, it was just a matter of beckoning, and no one dared to snatch it away. Let's look at Doflamingo again. He is also a child prodigy. He awakened the conqueror's haki at a young age and developed his fruit, which is considered top-notch in the world of pirates. But he spent a lot of time on conspiracies and intrigues, which led to extremely slow growth of his own strength. He was first beaten by Kaido and treated like a dog by Kaido. In the end, he was beaten by Luffy, and his life ended suddenly. His situation in the past 2 months is almost the same as Doflamingo's. His strength is growing slowly, definitely not as fast as Barrett in the original work. You have to know that in the original work, Barrett was able to fight Pluto on equal terms at the age of 15, but he is almost 15 now, and he hasn't even learned the armament haki and observation haki, so his strength is much worse. With the right mindset, Barrett could feel that his own domineering color had also increased slightly. Listen to you. Jin nodded. After meeting Garp this time, his mentality had changed. He knew that strength was the bottom line. Coupled with the pleasure of rapidly improving his strength under Rhine's guidance in the past 2 months, he also knew the importance of having someone to guide him, so that he could grow faster. After making the decision, the two began their respective training on the boat. However, after all, apart from halberd techniques and physical skills, the two could only think of their own physical fitness on the boat. Barrett swam while towing the boat, while Jin flew into the air and pulled the boat. Their ship was just a medium-sized one, which was just right for training with the strength of 2 people. The two of them practiced while fighting with the pirates they encountered. 5 months passed in a flash and their strength improved greatly. Barrett has mastered all 6 styles, integrating them into his boxing and halberd techniques. His overall strength is at least comparable to that of an ordinary vice admiral in the Navy. Moreover, in the past few months, he has been sharpening his fists with iron blocks and life returns every day according to what Rhine said. Although it hurts, his fists have some of the taste of iron fists. Moreover, Barrett was kind enough to teach the method to Jin. Jin originally learned the dual swords just like in the original novel. Barrett was naturally not stingy and not only gave Jin the swordsmanship of the Frost Moon clan, but also gave Jin the Purple Knight. Jin also subdued Ziyi on his own, and his sword skills improved by leaps and bounds. Moreover, he did not fall behind in physical skills. He sharpened his fists by grinding bones with iron blocks, but he created claw techniques based on finger guns. Barrett was naturally happy to help and told Jin some martial arts concepts from his previous life. After 5 months of continuous summary from battles and training, he had already formed several moves of claw techniques, and his strength was comparable to that of a major general in this unit. Because of the fruit, he also shamelessly named it the God Claw Fist. For this reason, Barrett's contempt was evident in his words. Evening, unknown island. Barrett sat next to Jin and asked him while he was eating meat, Jin, we have been drifting on the sea for 5 months. Do you think we are in the New World now? When can we meet Roger? Boss, don't ask me this. I don't know anything about sailing, but I'm sure that we are in the New World. After all, we have asked for directions so many times along the way. Don't you know? Jin rolled his eyelids, then ate the meat in big mouthfuls, preparing to use life return later. Hey. Barrett sighed and said quietly, why don't you learn how to sail? At least we are much better off drifting on the sea. Boss, I was always on the run before I was 12, and after that I followed you every day. My schedule was packed with training, so I had no time to learn sailing. I am already smart enough to be able to read. Jin rolled his eyes and said unhappily, besides, don't you only need to sleep 3 hours a day? You have so much time, why don't you learn sailing? You must be joking. I'm a captain. How can I learn sailing? Besides, my schedule is already fully booked. When Barrett heard this, he was like a cat with its fur standing on end, and he was very excited. His day was fully scheduled, so how could he have the time to learn navigation? The most important thing was that except for books about cultivation, he got a headache when he read other books, not to mention those strange symbols about navigation. Then you're just talking shit. I'll find someone later. Jin retorted in annoyance, stopped paying attention to Barrett, and started sharpening his fists. Barrett was speechless. He felt as if Jin had been led astray by him. He could only turn his grief and anger into strength, eating big mouthfuls of meat and sharpening his fists. Chapter 22, A Fateful Encounter. The next day, the sun shines brightly. Barrett, with his upper body naked, tied one end of a rope to his body and the other end to the boat, and began to swim and pull the boat. Jin was constantly practicing the basics of kendo at the bow. This was also what Barrett told him, to only learn the basics of kendo, refer to the kendo of the Frost Moon clan, and finally walk his own path, so that he would go further. Jin was very convinced of Barrett and was willing to listen to some of the methods proposed by Barrett. After several months of training, he has made great progress in every aspect. Jin, prepare to fight. Suddenly, Barrett jumped onto the bow, picked up the pure iron halberd, and looked straight ahead like a falcon. Got it, boss. Jin quickly stood up, holding Ziyi in both hands, stood next to Barrett, and stared ahead. Directly in front of them, a huge ship flying a bomb skull flag was heading towards them. Bang! Immediately afterwards, the pirate ship on the opposite side opened fire. Call out. Shish! More than a dozen shells flew towards them from far away. Bang bang! Barrett quickly swung his halberd and slashed out several blade beams, cutting down all the shells. Bang bang! Sounds of explosions rang out around the ship. Their ships were just ordinary ships, not forged by some great craftsman, nor were they made of precious stones. They were not much better than ordinary merchant ships. Although the bomb did not fall on the ship, it exploded around it, vibrating the ship and causing some parts of the ship to creak. Moreover, after several months of battles of all sizes, the ship was almost at its limit. If a few more explosions occurred, it would fall apart. Mad, Jin should go directly to their ship. Barrett naturally didn't want to be in this situation, so he shouted to Jin, raised his halberd, drew an arc in the air, and rushed straight towards the opponent. Jin's body shape changed, and a pair of wings spread out. With a whoosh, it cut through the air and landed on the boat, one after the other, following Barrett. Kill. Kill these two and smash them to pieces. Come on. Quote. As soon as the two men landed, a large group of pirates rushed up with long swords in their hands. Boom. Barrett sneered and directly activated the best skill to eliminate the small fish, Conqueror's Haki. A domineering aura emanated from Barrett, and a colorless airflow instantly rushed out hundreds of meters, covering everyone. Dang dang. Bang bang. The pirates who rushed up rolled their eyes and fainted one by one. In the blink of an eye, only 3 people were left out of dozens of pirates. Overlord, color. The 3 men looked at the calm and composed Barrett with very unpleasant expressions. They had never expected that they would encounter someone with domineering Haki just by robbing a small boat. Sir, I am the captain of the crocodile pirates. How about we just call it a day? The bald guy among the 3 was obviously immune to the domineering color. He raised a big machete and stepped forward to block some of the momentum for the 2 people behind him, so that the 2 people behind him could catch their breath. Then let's see if you can hold on. Barrett sneered. The ship was about to be blown apart. He was so angry that he had no place to vent. How could he possibly reconcile like this? Boom. He burst out with a domineering Haki that was even more powerful than before, and the 2 people behind the bald man were directly knocked unconscious, only the bald man was still holding on. A few hundred meters away from Barrett and others, a pirate ship with a bearded skull flag flying was sailing at high speed. Such a strong domineering color. On the bow of the boat, a middle-aged man wearing a straw hat looked at the clouds being dispersed in the sky and sighed softly. And this ship is none other than the Roger pirates that Barrett and his companions have been looking for, and the man on the bow is none other than Captain Roger. Want to take a look? Then, the blonde Rayleigh walked to Roger's right and asked lightly. Captain, go and take a look. I've been wanting to chop someone down for a long time. Then, a burly man wearing sunglasses and holding an axe in both hands walked to Roger's left, exuding a high fighting spirit. This man was Spark, Jabba, who was later called the Pirate King's left hand. Ha ha ha. Roger laughed and said, in that case, let's go over and take a look. Someone with such a strong conqueror's Haki must not be an ordinary person. I want to take a look too. Brothers, turn the rudder and prepare for battle. Yes, Captain. The crew members of Roger's pirate ship shouted in unison, and under their control, the pirate ship rushed towards Barrett and his men. At this time, Barrett was constantly suppressing the bald man with his conqueror Haki, and Jin started the treasure hunt game directly. When he returned to the plywood with a sack of treasure, He saw that Barrett was still playing, and said unhappily, "Boss, you can't play like this even with Conqueror hockey. Look, you're almost making people stupid." "Hey hey." Barrett smiled sheepishly, retracted his domineering hockey, and patted the bald man who was about to collapse. "Brother Bald, this is the first time I have met someone who can resist domineering hockey so well. Please forgive me." Well, Barrett's words were like the final blow. A trace of grief and anger flashed across the bald man's face. His eyes rolled back and he could no longer hold on and passed out. Boom. At this moment, an even more domineering aura of dominance rushed into the sky and pressed down on the pirate ship. Caca. The hull was directly broken by the domineering color. How come this domineering color is so strong? Jin broke out in a cold sweat instantly. For a long period of time, he was tortured by Barrett's domineering hockey, and the domineering hockey was completely useless to him. But this sudden domineering aura was even more domineering than Barrett's, and it directly caused physical damage, which made him feel a little nervous. Before he could react, Barrett, unwilling to be outdone, activated his strongest domineering color. Boom. The two domineering colors met and fought for supremacy in midair, neither of them giving in. The black and red lightning crackled in the air, and the endless airwaves stirred up a huge airflow, and the seawater was swept away, forming a big whirlpool. Jin, who was right between the two domineering auras, had his eyes turned white and he almost fainted. "Jin, if you want to become stronger, you must awaken your conqueror's hockey and become the true king of the sky. Think about your dreams and your enemies." At this moment, Barrett's encouraging voice reached Jin's ears. "My dream, my enemy." Jin forced himself to be strong and whispered. "The celestial dragons, Mary Geois, and the Red Earth continent. I need to become stronger so I can take revenge. I want to be the king of the sky. I control my own life." Boom. Along with a loud roar from Jin, a powerful aura emanated from Jin's body, and the third domineering color rushed into the sky, with a crackling sound, and a small part of the other two domineering colors were dispersed. Jin's domineering color came and went quickly, and as Jin overdrew his own mental strength, he soon fell into a coma. "Brother, congratulations." Barrett quickly retracted his domineering look, walked to Jin's side, and looked at the unconscious Jin with a satisfied smile. Barrett has been deliberately using the Conqueror's hockey to train King Jin all along, hoping that King Jin will be able to awaken the Conqueror's hockey one day. After all, the world of One Piece becomes more and more brutal as time goes on. Those who have not awakened the Conqueror's hockey and cannot be domineering cannot be called strong. Fortunately, Jinx had good luck and was accidentally found between two extremely powerful domineering colors. The opponent seemed to be aware of the situation and deliberately controlled the domineering color to match Barrett's domineering color. It was at this coincidence that Jinx awakened the domineering color. From this point of view, the person who releases the Conqueror's hockey is an amazingly strong man. After all, Barrett's Conqueror's hockey is not weak. In this ocean, there are not many people who are stronger than him just by relying on the Conqueror's hockey. Who is the one? Barrett was a little curious, so he carried Jin on his back and jumped into the sky. He saw a pirate flag with a bearded skull painted on it flying in the sky, and 3 people were standing on the bow of the ship. A fateful encounter. Seeing the 3 people on the bow, Barrett smiled. He didn't expect that he would meet the Roger pirates, whom he had been looking for several months, here, and he also inadvertently helped King awaken his Conqueror's hockey. "Hey, bro, come down and talk." On the bow, Roger waved his hands and shouted loudly. "Call out." Barrett activated the A World Away skill in the air and arrived on Roger's ship in an instant with Jin on his back. Seeing Barrett's speed, almost everyone on Roger's ship was shocked. Even the 3 powerful men Roger, Rayleigh and Jabba were shocked. "Hello, everyone." Barrett greeted with a smile. "Hello, young man." Rayleigh narrowed his eyes and gently touched the handle of the knife with his right hand. "Hey buddy, nice to meet you. My name is Roger, and I'm the captain of the Roger Pirates." Roger patted Rayleigh and looked at Barrett with a smile on his face. "Hello Captain Roger, my name is Barrett, and the one on my back is called Jin. We have been looking for you for several months." Barrett told the truth and had no intention of hiding anything. Besides, he couldn't hide it even if he wanted to. After all, Roger's observation hockey was no weaker than his Conqueror's hockey, and listening to the sounds of all things was no joke. If he lied, he would only be annoying. Haha, then I'll invite you to join our pirate group. Roger said with a smile. Will you teach us to become stronger? Barrett asked back. Here, you can learn what you want to learn. Roger said. Then we agree. With Roger as a guarantor, Barrett agreed decisively. Ha ha ha. Roger laughed and said, brothers, let's have a banquet today to celebrate the joining of Barrett and Jin. Welcome to the Roger Pirates. Everyone laughed and shouted in unison. Chapter 23. See who's bigger. In the waters of Bacca, on Roger's ship. Two children were tied to a pillar, one had red hair and the other had a red nose. Both children were only 7 or 8 years old and were stripped naked. The red-haired one is called Shanks, the future 4 emperors, and will be known as the most domineering man in the future. The man with the red nose is called Buggy, a man with great luck. If life deceives you, don't be sad, don't be anxious. This was the 7th day that he and Jin had been on Roger's ship. Because he had deliberately made friends with them, he became familiar with Shanks and Buggy in just 2 days. They became brothers on the 3rd day, they slept side by side on the 4th day, and he began to implement his plan on the 5th day. It rained on the 6th day, and the sky cleared up on the 7th day. He tricked Buggy and Shanks into being tied to a pillar, and then began his little fun. Shanks's is indeed one size smaller. I think Bucky's is just a little long, but it's too thin and has no punch at all. It should be bounced more to make it bigger. Shanks's should be used to pull it better and increase the length. Quote. Behind Barrett was a group of men who had just experienced the storm, including Roger, Rayleigh, Jabba, Taro and many other tough guys, watching the two men discussing with each other. Are you devils? Shanks and Buggy looked at everyone commenting on them, feeling filled with shame, and they yelled at everyone in unison. Bang bang. Barrett played it for each of them and said to them, shut up, you don't know how important this thing is to your future. What if you meet a beautiful girl in the future and she despises you? Listen more to the guidance of your seniors. Buggy and Shanks were shivering all over and lowered their heads obediently. That's right. You should learn from Barrett. Don't just think about fighting and treasure hunting all day. You should learn how to love and experience life. Rayleigh pushed his glasses and turned into an emotional mentor. Life is precious. Barrett cooperated very well with Rayleigh. Love is more valuable. Rayleigh raised his head high. So, Mr. Rayleigh, let's fight. Only with stronger strength can you be worthy of love. Barrett immediately picked up the halberd and looked at Rayleigh with burning eyes. Rayleigh's mouth twitched, full of regret. Why bother with Barrett for no reason? He was the typical person who was making things difficult for himself. It would be better for him to find a place to drink. I also want. Hearing the battle, Jin, who had disappeared all of a sudden, jumped out with 2 long swords in his hands, looking at Rayleigh, Roger and others. 2 brothers, we are on the boat. Everyone looked at Barrett and Jin with twitching mouth corners. Ever since Barrett and Jin got on the boat, the two were either challenging or training. Barrett is okay, we can play together occasionally. But Jin is a training and fighting maniac. When you can't see him, he is definitely training, and when it comes to fighting, he will definitely be the first to jump out. Mr. Rayleigh, I find you to be dishonest. Every time I challenge you to a fight, you hide. Are you lonely and cold? Without my little sister, you spend every day on the sedan chair, which hurts your body. Barrett put away his halberd and complained unhappily as he looked at Rayleigh who was running away again. He had always wanted to fight Rayleigh, Roger, and Jabba to see how much difference there was between him and the world's top powers, but the 3 big men on the ship either hid or avoided him, leaving him helpless. PFF'd ha ha ha. Rayleigh sled. That's a very appropriate description. Quote. Hearing Barrett's complaints, everyone burst into laughter. You little brat, I, Rayleigh, a handsome man, need a sedan chair. Rayleigh yelled in anger. Tisk. Barrett looked at Rayleigh with disdain and continued to complain. In our hometown, people like you are usually kept by others, commonly known as silver spears and wax heads, which are good looking but useless. Ha 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 ha. Poof. The wax head of the silver spear. It looks good but is useless. Quote. Everyone burst into laughter again, even Shanks and Buggy who were tied up laughed so hard that their faces turned red. You little brat, I want to duel with you. I'm not a bad guy. I can stay in bed for 3 days without any problems. Rayleigh was furious and stared at Barrett with a red face and thick neck. As for you, you'll have to take medicine in less than 10 minutes. Barrett curled his lips, looking as if he was so angry that he was about to die. Ha ha ha. Everyone laughed. Rayleigh was furious, trembling as he pointed at Barrett. Asshole, you just want to fight. I'll find an uninhabited island and beat you so hard that you can't take care of yourself. Then I'll show you what a real man is. Captain, make way and find the island, so we can see what a real man is. Barrett had been arguing for a long time, just waiting for this sentence. Ha ha ha, let's see the real man Rayleigh. Roger laughed and directed the helmsman Zhang to march towards the uninhabited island. Mr. Jabba, let's have a fight too. At this moment, Jin, who had disappeared, jumped out again and looked at Jabba with burning eyes. Go away, there's nothing to do, go find Buggy and Shanks. Jabba was wearing sunglasses, smoking a cigarette, and waving his hands impatiently, like a gangster boss. Those two are too small. I also want to see if Mr. Jabba is a real man, whether he is round or flat, big or small. Jin was not honest either and started to provoke him directly. Fuck. Jin's mouth was also smeared with poison. Quote. Everyone looked at Jin in disbelief. They didn't expect that Jin, who usually kept silent and focused on training and fighting, was actually a tough guy. Roger, hurry up and find an island. Don't let anyone stop me. I will kill this little bastard. I'm not a gigolo like Rayleigh. How can I not be a real man? I'm much bigger than him. Jabba was also so angry that he became furious and started cursing. Damn it, Jabba, you have the nerve to show off your earthworm. Aren't you afraid of being embarrassed? Rayleigh was caught in the crossfire and immediately started to fight back. Damn it, Rayleigh, you little white face, I'm a dragon, I can sweep you hundreds of meters away with just one swing. Jabba immediately started to argue and stopped smoking opium. You, a needle-like thing, or a dragon, and you are not afraid of being exposed. You will be blown away directly. Rayleigh curled his lips, and his actions were almost exactly the same as Barrett before. Rayleigh is a very quick learner and his actions and expressions are extremely appropriate, which made Jabba so angry that he was gasping for breath. I have a suggestion. They say seeing is believing, hearing is not. How about tying you to a pillar like Shanks and the others and letting everyone vote by raising their hands? What do you think? At this time, Barrett suddenly jumped out and raised his hand to propose. Everyone was stunned when they heard this, and everyone looked at Rayleigh and Jabba involuntarily, obviously very interested in Barrett's suggestion. Shut up. Rayleigh and the other man shuddered at being looked at, and turned to stare at Barrett fiercely and yelled in unison. I'm just making a suggestion. Being stared at by two top-level masters, Barrett felt quite pressured and stepped back with a wry smile. Ha 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 ha. Roger laughed. You also get scared sometimes. Captain, we are the eldest brother, not to mention the second brother. How dare you say that you are not afraid of being stared at by both of them at the same time? Besides, you are not as old as them, so you don't need to get involved. Barrett glanced at Roger and sneered, looking like he deserved a beating. Asshole, we'll stay on the island for a few more days. We won't leave until we straighten your mouth. Seeing Barrett's squinting eyes and crooked mouth, Roger exploded and the blood vessels on his forehead started throbbing. Fuck, Barrett's words are so damn poisonous. That's right, I just provoked another one. I think it's normal for him to be beaten up by a group of people one day. He is so hated by people. Quote. Others saw Roger getting mad and made comments. Tisk, you guys, I'm not afraid of a group fight. One by one, if I don't give you a full facelift, it would be unfair to my hands. Hearing everyone's discussion, Barrett immediately started attacking. Captain, where is the nearest island? Captain, I think we should stay for half a year. Captain, I think the boat can go faster. Barrett's provocation, coupled with his extremely annoying expression, immediately angered everyone on the boat. Everyone on the boat was ready to beat Barrett up. Barrett saw that he had achieved his goal by arousing everyone's anger, so he stopped provoking. But his non-provocation does not mean that Jin will calm down. Seeing that Barrett was about to get so many battles, his eyes turned red and he directly opened his mouth to use his ultimate move. I think not only are you weak, but your birds are weak too, you are all a bunch of scum. As he spoke, Jin pointed at Roger and said, especially the captain, he is already over 30 years old, his nose hair is broken in two, and now he doesn't even have a wife. Is it because he has lost too much money that he can't fly anymore? Jin was firing everywhere, and everyone was gnashing their teeth in hatred. Except for the two little ones, everyone was ready to fight, hoping to reach the destination as soon as possible and release the frustration in their hearts. Shanks and Buggy, who were still tied up, looked at each other. They felt that Barrett and King were stupid and this was not the way to seek death. Chapter 24 Barrett vs. Rayleigh. Baka Sea, Unknown Island. Barrett and Rayleigh stood opposite each other, and the remaining crew members of Roger's pirate group were all watching on the other side, all of them gritting their teeth as they looked at Barrett in the field. Rayleigh, don't let your face get swollen. Leave some room for me. Roger said through gritted teeth. Uncle Rayleigh, I've prepared a rope. We'll knock this bastard out and tie up the bird. Shanks was holding a rope that he had found from somewhere. His little face looked extremely excited and he kept shouting while holding the rope. Uncle Rayleigh, I also got a crab claw. We'll play with the bird later. Bucky had a big red nose and was waving a crab claw as thick as an adult's arm in his hand, his face full of expectation. Bucky, Shanks, I'm telling you, your future life will be dark. Barrett's face turned green when he looked at the things in Buggy and Shanks' hands. He didn't expect these two guys to hold such a grudge, especially Buggy. He didn't know where he got the crab claws. Could those claws be used to clamp that thing? It will break if you are not careful. Barrett shuddered at the thought, and looked at Buggy with a dim gaze. Bucky, I tell you, today is a shame. Report to the newspaper. You are still young and need to think about your future. Be careful that the little bird disappears one night. Well, Bucky quickly covered his little bird, hid his crab claws behind his back, and shouted embarrassedly, Barrett, I am kidding. Don't be afraid, Bucky. We'll support you. That's a good idea, Bucky. The pliers must be good for catching birds. Quote. When others saw that Barrett was also afraid, they echoed his words, hoping that the world would not be in chaos. Barrett boy, Bucky's idea is good. I will try it later. Rayleigh pushed his glasses up, a hint of excitement on his face. Deputy Captain Rayleigh, I'm still young. If you dare to do this, I will get it back sooner or later. Barrett glared at Bucky fiercely with a depressed look on his face. He didn't understand Bucky's train of thought. He actually thought of using crab claws to pinch him. Tisk, no more nonsense, come on. Let me see if you have the qualifications to be arrogant. Rayleigh curled his lips, his aura surged, and he burst out with a strong desire to fight. Barrett looked serious and excited, because he was facing the future Pluto, the top pirate on the sea. Moreover, Rayleigh was in middle age at this time. Both his physical and mental conditions were at their peak, and his strength was unpredictable. Wait a moment, Mr. Rayleigh. Barrett unbuttoned his coat, revealing a black armor underneath. The armor was covered with pieces of black iron, making it look a bit rough. He slowly untied the black iron armor on his body and threw it more than 10 meters away. Boom! The black armor fell to the ground and created a big hole. This scene made the crew members of Roger's pirate group stunned, and then their faces twitched. Is this guy a monster? He actually wears such a heavy thing all the time. Bucky widened his eyes in disbelief. Is something this heavy meant for a human to wear? Shanks' face was stunned and he was also in disbelief. He secretly hid the rope in his hand. Bucky, Shanks, the boss's burden is more than just this. Jin, who appeared out of nowhere, spoke, his smiling face always making people feel a little uneasy. Bang bang. With two consecutive sounds of heavy objects falling to the ground, Barrett removed all the weight from his legs. Everyone turned to look and saw that they were two small bags. They were not very big, but judging from the sound they made when they hit the ground, they must be very heavy. It's so heavy. I can't lift it. Bucky ran over curiously and tried to lift the small bag with his hands, but he couldn't lift it. Ha ha. Jin laughed. Bucky's bag is full of heavy metals, each weighing a ton. If you're so lazy, it'll take at least another year or two to pick it up. You must be kidding. One of the crew members shouted. How heavy is that suit? Shanks asked curiously. 15 tons. Jin responded, with some regret, it's a pity that we don't have the channels to get the Navy's weight-bearing equipment. Otherwise, with the boss's current physique, he can at least carry more than 20 tons. Shanks and the others saw Jin's expression and their mouths twitched. They wanted to shout, 15 tons is already amazing, okay. Kid, if you push your body like this, it will cause many hidden injuries to your body, which will definitely affect your progress in the end. Hearing about Barrett's weight, Rayleigh's expression became very serious. After a few days of getting along with each other, Rayleigh and others have already recognized Barrett and the other man. Don't worry, Mr. Rayleigh. I have a special body and can handle it. Barrett grinned and mentioned that the muscles on Che's arms had swelled a lot, at least 10% larger than usual. This is the effect he has been achieving through the use of life return and iron blocks. At first he only sharpened his fists. Later, there came a time when his fists seemed to have been sharpened to a limit, so he set his sights on sharpening his arms. It has been almost 3 months now, and he has made some progress. Mr. Rayleigh, I'm going to take action. Barrett's eyes were excited and fanatical. Since he came to this world, he had never fought with a real strong man, and he had never been clear about his own strength. That's why he always wanted to fight with Rayleigh and others to see how big the gap was between him and these top strong men. Bring it on. Rayleigh drew out the long sword from his waist and his face became serious. He was one of the strongest men in the world and could feel that Barrett's aura was not bad and possessed the special aura of a strong man. This made him feel a little excited in his heart, a special excitement among the strong. Barrett's figure disappeared in an instant, and Rayleigh quickly drew his sword, and with a ding, he blocked Barrett's swift halberd. Rayleigh didn't move a step, which shows how strong he is. Haha, Mr. Rayleigh, be careful. Barrett was very excited. He could feel a very strong pressure. A shadow was left behind. In an instant, the painted halberd turned into countless black lights and attacked Rayleigh. Rayleigh was not afraid at all. He raised his sword and fought back. The sword and halberd were wielded wildly. All the trees and stones where the two men were fighting were destroyed by the sharp sword energy and halberd light. Some were split into several pieces, and some were turned into fragments. The intensity of the fight was jaw-dropping. But no matter how fierce and tricky Barrett's halberd was, it was completely blocked by Rayleigh. Barrett also unknowingly gained many scars and cuts on his body, while Rayleigh only had 2 cuts on his body, which were just on his clothes and did not hurt his flesh. Ha ha ha, refreshing, this is the top powerhouse in the sea. The fighting spirit in Barrett's eyes became even stronger, he laughed loudly, and his aura became more majestic and powerful. Boy, you're not bad either. Rayleigh smiled faintly. He was not yet the Pluto of later generations, and he was still a little proud to be called a top powerhouse by Barrett. Mr. Rayleigh, be careful, kill them. Barrett took a step sideways, holding the halberd with both hands. The muscles on his arms swirled up, his clothes were torn in an instant, his golden hair moved without wind, his eyes were wide open, and he looked like a demon. He leapt high into the air, holding the halberd, and smashed towards Rayleigh with tremendous momentum. Ichidao Ryu, slashing demons. Rayleigh's expression turned serious. He could feel the power of this move. He held the sword in both hands, flew into the air, and slashed from bottom to top, creating a black sword energy dozens of meters long. Wherever the sword energy passed, all the plants withered. Bang! The two forces collided, causing a violent shock wave that flattened the area within a radius of dozens of meters. Barrett was also blown away and hit the stone wall heavily, spitting out a large mouthful of blood. On the other hand, Rayleigh just landed lightly on the ground. Apart from his slightly disordered breathing, he did not suffer any injuries and even his clothes were not damaged. Is this the top powerhouse? Looking at Rayleigh's calm look, Barrett murmured to himself, with an even hotter light flashing in his eyes. Boy, I actually lost this battle. At this moment, Rayleigh's calm voice spread throughout the venue. How is that possible? It was Barrett who was sent flying dozens of meters away. Is Mr. Rayleigh being polite? Maybe it's to comfort Barrett. Quote. Some of the weaker ones looked puzzled and doubtful. Mr. Rayleigh, losing is losing, winning is winning, there is no other way. Barrett frowned and looked at Rayleigh, feeling dissatisfied. He was not the kind of person who could not afford to lose, and he knew the gap between himself and Rayleigh. No, Rayleigh did lose this battle. He used a power that you don't have. Just then, Roger walked onto the scene and spoke. Ha 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 ha. Barrett laughed after hearing this, and then looked directly at Roger. Captain, what do you mean I don't have it? Mr. Rayleigh has it, and it is acquired through his own practice, so it is part of his strength. Since it is part of his strength, why can't he use it? If I don't use it because I don't have it, then what's the point of fighting like this? If I lose, the effort is that I don't have that kind of power. I can learn it, but you can't let me. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 25 Apprenticeship. After hearing Barrett's words, Roger, Rayleigh, and the people watching on the side were all stunned for a moment, and their eyes changed when they looked at Barrett. The boss is so handsome. I'm going to target Barrett. Jin and Shanks were full of admiration and instantly regarded Barrett as their life mentor. Two idiots, isn't it the job of pirates to look for treasure? Buggy curled his lips, took out a treasure map that he got from somewhere, and began to study it carefully. Boy, I apologize to you. I was wrong this time. After a while, Rayleigh bowed to Bar with a sincere look on his face. And I. Roger also followed Rayleigh and bowed. I forgive you, Barrett grinned. After spending some time together, he discovered that Roger and Rayleigh's personalities were roughly the same as described in the original book. They were open-minded and tolerant, very generous to people they approved of, very kind to ordinary civilians, and did not kill innocent people indiscriminately. But they were not good people either, and they committed murder, robbery, and other crimes that they should have committed. Ha ha ha. Roger laughed and said, brothers, let's have a party for what Barrett said. Oh. Hearing that the banquet had started, everyone cheered in unison. Some carried wine, some went into the sea to fish. Only Buggy was hiding under a tree, quietly studying the treasure map, and occasionally making strange, hee-hee, laughter, which made Shanks and Jin stunned. Barrett walked over to Rayleigh and Roger and asked with a smile, Mr. Rayleigh, you used armament hockey just now, right? Why? You want to learn. Rayleigh took off the wine gourd, took a sip of wine, and looked at Barrett with a smile. Think. Barrett nodded without hesitation. It would be foolish to say he didn't want to now. Ha ha ha. Roger laughed. You are so direct. Captain, a man is a man who is straightforward. Barrett glanced at Roger with a gloomy look. Captain, you are not gay. Roger was confused and stunned by Barrett. Puff. Cough cough. Rayleigh sprayed the wine he had just poured into Roger's face and laughed. Roger is gay. Barrett. Roger yelled in anger, grabbed Barrett, and shouted viciously, my dick is straight, if you say I'm bent, I'll put it in your mouth. I wipe. Barrett's face turned green. He didn't expect Roger to have this attribute. He quickly waved his hand and said, Captain, you are straight. I was wrong. PFF'd, ha 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 ha. Riley, who was watching the show on the side, laughed out loud. Humph. Roger snorted coldly, let go of Barrett and sat down next to Rayleigh. He snatched Rayleigh's gourd, took a sip of wine, and said to Barrett, Barrett, with your physical fitness, you have already reached the conditions for awakening the armed color. Now all you lack is the method. With the method, you can awaken quickly. We will rest on this island for a few days, and I will let Rayleigh teach you the hockey of armament and hockey of observation. Quote. Why me? Rayleigh snatched the wine gourd and grumbled in dissatisfaction. You have a high level of teaching. Roger said it as a matter of course, seeming a little shameless. That's true. Barrett nodded in agreement. Rayleigh could be said to be one of the famous teachers in the world of One Piece, and a leader in teaching the three-color domineering. Not to mention the distant past, let's just talk about Shanks now. One of the future 4 emperors is Rayleigh's student. Together with the later King Luffy, all those taught by Rayleigh are top-notch experts. Although this is related to the apprentice's qualifications, Barrett's qualifications are also top-notch. Gu Dong. Rayleigh took a sip of his wine, glanced at Barrett, and said, okay. I agree. Mr. Rayleigh, you see, it's the same to herd 1 sheep or 2 sheep, so why not herd Jin as well? When we get to the next inhabited island, we'll give you half of the treasure we brought. Barrett said with a smile. I agree. You will come with me after the banquet. Rayleigh nodded decisively, then looked directly at Barrett and said, Barrett, we agreed to give me half of the treasure. He knew about Barrett's treasure. When Barrett and the other man got on the boat, Jin and Barrett each carried a large bag of treasure, which made the eyes of these poor guys red. Mr. Rayleigh, look at what you said. Am I that stingy? I'll give you half right now. Barrett stood up in dissatisfaction and shouted to Jin, who was studying the treasure map with Buggy, Jin, come here quickly. Okay boss. Jin quickly ran to Barrett and asked, Boss, what's up? Buggy said there's a treasure on this island and he's studying the treasure map. Don't think about those things. Go and get half of our treasure and give it to Mr. Rayleigh. This is our apprenticeship gift. Mr. Rayleigh promised to teach us domineering. Okay. Jin was even more excited than Barrett. He ran back to his room on the ship in a few seconds, carrying a large bag of treasure and sat down next to Barrett. Mr. Rayleigh, this is for you. Jin put the treasure in front of Rayleigh and opened his pocket. The gold jewelry inside was sparkling, and most importantly, there was a devil fruit inside. The devil fruit was obtained by Barrett and King on a pirate ship when they were wandering. According to Barrett, it should be an animal type. Barrett was not very interested in it. King had also eaten the devil fruit and put it together with the treasure when packing. He kept the two he had obtained before for himself. Barrett, you guys are also. Rayleigh and Roger's eyes widened when they saw the devil fruit inside. They didn't expect Barrett and King to be so generous as to give him the devil fruit directly. Mr. Rayleigh, there is a saying in my hometown that a teacher is a father for life. The gift of apprenticeship is also called a gift of tuition. You need to follow the etiquette and prepare a very heavy gift of tuition to become a disciple. For a world power like Mr. Rayleigh, this gift of tuition is already very meager. Barrett said as he pulled Jin to his knees in front of Rayleigh and shouted respectfully, "Greetings, Master." Meet the Master. Jin followed suit and learned from Barrett. You. Rayleigh looked at the two of them and his heart was slightly touched. He was free and unrestrained by nature. Although he had taught many people, he had never really accepted an apprentice. However, he was moved by Barrett and Jin's actions. After a moment of silence, Rayleigh helped one of them up with one hand and said seriously, "Okay, from today on, you are my apprentices. I will teach you everything I know." "Thank you, Master." Barrett and Jin saluted respectfully. As a descendant of the dragon, respecting teachers is engraved in his bones, otherwise he would not have saved Ryan's life before. "Rayleigh, congratulations." Roger on the side said sourly, "You have so much treasure. Do you want to give me some? I will keep it for you." "Sure. But you have to do your part. The use of the Conqueror's hockey will be left to you." Rayleigh pushed his glasses and looked at Roger with a smile. When Barrett heard Rayleigh's words, his heart almost bulged out, fearing that Roger would not agree. In this era, when it comes to the use of Conqueror's hockey, Roger can be ranked in the top 3. If Roger teaches how to use Conqueror's hockey, then Conqueror's hockey will be easy to achieve. No problem. Roger agreed readily without much hesitation. Jin, bring the remaining treasure to the captain. Hearing Roger's agreement, Barrett directly asked Jin to bring the remaining treasures. Compared with Bakken, treasures and other external things are not worth mentioning at all. Okay boss. Looking at Barrett's excitement, Jin knew that what Roger taught must be something extraordinary. He ran very fast and came back in less than a minute and gave the treasure to Roger. Then they sat together, and Rayleigh took out the devil fruit and handed it to Roger. "Roger, look at what kind of fruit this is." Roger took the fruit, looked at it carefully for a while, threw the fruit to Rayleigh, and said with a smile, "This is the animal type, cat fruit, cheetah form. It's a pretty good devil fruit. Keep it. This thing is useless to me, but it will be very useful to you in the future." Rayleigh handed the devil fruit to Barrett. "Master, this is a gift for you to become my apprentice." Barrett smiled bitterly. He didn't expect Rayleigh to be so generous and not even interested in the devil fruit. "Just consider it a gift from me to you, keep it." Rayleigh took a sip of wine and waved his hand nonchalantly. Barrett said no more, put the devil fruit in his arms, and then asked Roger, "Captain, have you seen the devil fruit encyclopedia?" "Yes." Roger nodded. "There is a devil fruit encyclopedia on the ship. If you want to see it, I'll give it to you later." "Thank you, Captain." Barrett bowed. "No need." Roger waved his hand, snatched Rayleigh's wine gourd, took a sip of wine, and asked Barrett, "Barrett, you gave us all your treasures, you won't rob ordinary people on the next island, right?" Roger spoke casually, but Barrett always felt that there were two auras staring at him. Chapter 26. Treasure Hunt with Bucky. How could that be? Ordinary people don't have money. Barrett waved his hand. He had no interest in ordinary people. Robbing pirates would be faster than robbing civilians. Then he pointed at Buggy, who was studying the treasure map with a smile, and said, "Captain, Master, Buggy has a lot of treasure maps. He is so young, what if he encounters danger during the treasure hunt? We will go there as bodyguards and charge normal fees. Ha 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 ha. Roger and Rayleigh were stunned for a moment, then turned to look at Buggy, who was studying the treasure map with Shanks, and couldn't help but laugh in unison. Although Bucky is not diligent in training, he is extremely talented in treasure hunting. At a young age, he is very knowledgeable about treasure maps and now has several treasure maps in his hands. You can't attack your companions. Roger said seriously, trying not to laugh. No, I just like studying treasure maps and being a bodyguard. We are brothers. Barrett looked serious and spoke as if he was really going to be a bodyguard. Hearing this, Roger and Rayleigh's mouths twitched, and they had a new understanding of Barrett's shamelessness. At this time, Buggy and Shanks stood up and sneaked into the forest. Roger couldn't help but remind them, Bucky is taking action, you bodyguard, why don't you follow and take a look? Jin, let's go. Barrett did not delay either. He pulled the dizzy Jin and quietly followed Buggy and the others. Roger, why don't we go and take a look? I always feel that Buggy is very reliable when it comes to treasure. After Barrett and the other man left, Rayleigh whispered to Roger. Do I need to go? Roger muttered, and directly activated his observation hockey. The overwhelming observation hockey directly covered the entire island. Rayleigh's mouth twitched. He felt a little stupid during this period of time. Why did he follow them when he had such a convenient thing as observation hockey? Then he used observation hockey and paid attention to the four people. Buggy and Shanks walked into the jungle cautiously, with Barrett and King following closely behind them. Barrett was feeling a little excited. In his previous life, he particularly loved watching treasure hunting programs, hoping that he would become rich overnight. I didn't expect that even though my dream in my previous life didn't come true, I would still have this experience in this life. I'm still following Bucky to hunt for treasure. Buggy took Shanks walking and stopping, and soon they stopped at the edge of a cliff. Bucky, is this treasure map of yours fake? Why is the destination on a cliff? Can there be treasure on a cliff? Shanks looked at the steep cliff and yelled at Buggy in annoyance. Stop shouting, let me take another look at the treasure map. Buggy glared at Shanks unhappily and took out the treasure map to study it carefully. After a while, Buggy looked at the cliff and said firmly, Shanks, the treasure is up there. Why don't we go up and take a look? Are you crazy? Shanks looked at the cliff that was dozens of meters high and said unhappily, do you think we can climb up with our bodies? No. Buggy looked at the cliff, then at his own and Shanks' small bodies, his face filled with frustration. Hey, Buggy, does Shanks need any help? Just then, Barrett and Jin showed up and walked over to Buggy and Shanks. Why are you here? Seeing the two people appear, Buggy and Shanks shouted in unison, as if they had seen a ghost. The captain saw you two leaving and asked us to protect you, Barrett said with a smile. Jin on the side nodded in agreement. In the camp. Sensing the sudden appearance of Barrett and the other man, Roger's mouth twitched. Looking at Rayleigh, who was trying not to laugh, he said unhappily, Rayleigh, your two disciples are really dishonest. Didn't you ask them to be bodyguards? Rayleigh curled his lips and looked at Roger with a smile. Quote. Roger was speechless. On the edge of a cliff. Bucky looked at Barrett warily and said viciously, are you here to steal my treasure? What do you mean by robbing? You can't get up anyway. After you leave, I'll go up and take a look myself. Barrett narrowed his eyes and looked at Bucky with a smile. You are not allowed to go up. I found this. Bucky stretched out his hand to stop Barrett. That's right. We spent a long time researching to find this. You are not allowed to steal it. The captain said that we cannot attack our companions. Shanks also stretched out his hand to stop Barrett and the other man. I didn't say I'll go up now. I'll go up after you leave. Anyway, we can fly, so we won't be afraid of wasting time. Barrett crossed his arms and looked at Buggy and Shanks with a smile on his face. When Buggy and Shanks heard this, they were stunned for a moment. They couldn't stay here forever. Once they left, Barrett and King would come back to take the treasure and it would not be considered robbery. Shanks, my treasure is gone. Bucky, next time we'll look for the one in the ocean. The two looked at each other, feeling extremely aggrieved, and hugged each other with tears in their eyes. When the two of them cried, Barrett and Jin were dumbfounded. Barrett did not expect that the two future four emperors were so despicable when they were young. They would cry as soon as they said they would, without even any foreplay. It was a pity that they were not actors. But it also made them both feel overwhelmed, and Barrett had to speak up. Hey, I say enough is enough, you two. I didn't say I won't take you with me, why are you two crying? Really, Barrett. Buggy and Shanks instantly let go, looking at Barrett and the other man with tears in their eyes, and said in unison. Hey, you two are pretty cute. Looking at the two of them, Barrett thought they were a bit cute, so he couldn't help but reach out and pinch each of them. Buggy and Shanks slapped Barrett's hand away in annoyance and said in unison, who's cute? We're pirates. Ha ha ha. Looking at the two men's expressions, Barrett and Jin laughed out loud. Do not laugh. Buggy and Shanks spoke again, glaring at Barrett and the other man angrily. I'm just laughing, come and hit me. Barrett continued to provoke, hooking his fingers at the two of them with a very shameless expression, a typical naughty child. Quote. Jin couldn't bear to watch it any longer, so he walked over and sat aside. Having been with Barrett for so long, he knew how annoying Barrett was. Anyone with a weaker resistance could be killed by his mouth. Asshole. Bucky was furious and was about to rush up to challenge Barrett. Bucky, don't be impulsive. You are no match for him. The most important thing now is the treasure. Shanks on the side quickly hugged Buggy. Hoo. After hearing treasure, Buggy calmed down. He shivered involuntarily when he saw Barrett's sturdy body. Barrett, the captain said that we cannot attack our companions. Buggy quickly hid behind Shanks and looked at Barrett tremblingly. Bucky's amazing move stunned the three people present, and even the two people who were secretly observing in the camp sprayed out the wine in their mouths. Bucky, you are so timid. Sitting under the tree, Jin's mouth twitched. After spending so many days together, he originally thought that Buggy was a man, but he turned out to be a coward. Barrett was also speechless. After spending some time together, he thought that the description of Buggy in the original work was bragging, but he didn't expect it to be true. Baki, you bastard, you actually blocked me in front of you. Shanks yelled, pulling Buggy in front of him unhappily. Barrett won't kill you, what are you afraid of? Bucky, you are too timid. You need to practice more in the future. Barrett stopped bullying the two kids. He rubbed Buggy's head vigorously and said, Jin and I will take you up. We will divide the treasure equally among the four of us. What do you think? I agree. Shanks nodded decisively. Bucky hesitated and stood there awkwardly, looking at this and that. His meaning was very clear. If I don't say anything, I will keep it all for myself. You guys can do whatever you want. Barrett was amused when he saw Buggy's look. Buggy was the typical type who was greedy, inexperienced and playful. Shanks, let's go up there and divide it up directly. Barrett simply ignored Buggy and turned to Shanks. It is good. Shanks nodded. As a friend since childhood, how could he not know what Buggy was thinking? Bucky was dumbfounded. He didn't expect the three of them to just stop playing with him. He quickly shouted, you can't do this. The treasure map is mine. Humph, who told you to keep it all for yourself? Shanks retorted unhappily. Come on. Shanks, if he's brave enough he can climb up on his own. Barrett ignored him, hugged Shanks and took the moon step directly into the sky. Seeing this, Buggy hugged Jin with tears and snot, crying, Uncle Jin, I am willing to share the lead with you. PFF'd ha 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 ha. Jin didn't refuse. He carried the crying Buggy straight into the sky. Soon they found a cave on the cliff. Buggy, who was carried by Jin, pointed at the cave entrance and shouted, that's where the treasure map says it is. Barrett and Jin took the two and flew quickly towards the cave entrance. In the camp. There really is a treasure. Rayleigh exclaimed with a look of astonishment on his face. Ha ha ha, who knows? Roger laughed. Chapter 27. Baki is blinded. The four of them landed and walked towards the cave with excitement. The cave was not deep, and the four people had not taken a few steps when a stone door blocked their way. Hurry and see if there is any mechanism. Looking at the stone gate, Barrett was a little excited, and his middle school heart burst out. He felt like the protagonist in those treasure hunting movies in his previous life, encountering layers of mechanisms and finding treasures one by one. The process was full of ups and downs, and legendary stories were born. The only pity is that the protagonists in the movie are all accompanied by beauties, but next to me. Barrett glanced at the four people in the cave, shook his head regretfully, and began to look for the switch with full fighting spirit. The other three were stunned when they saw Barrett behaving strangely. Jin, is Barrett stupid? Shanks nodded at Jin. How should I know? Jin rolled his eyes and looked at Barrett, who was rummaging through the cave, with a look of surprise under his mask. He had been following Barrett for some time and had robbed a lot of treasures, but this was the first time he had seen Barrett in this state. Can't this door just be opened by pushing it hard? Is there some kind of mechanism? Bucky didn't care about that. He walked to the door confidently and pushed it hard with both hands. Boom. The stone door was pushed open directly by Bucky. Barrett, you idiot, this door opens with just a slight push, why does it need a mechanism? Bucky pushed open the door and laughed unscrupulously. Now it was Barrett's turn to be dumbfounded. Looking at the smug Buggy, he felt that his intelligence was insulted. He walked over to Buggy with his fists clenched, punched Buggy on the head twice, and angrily said, "You idiot, don't you know that treasure hunting is all about the process? You've ruined the experience by doing this." As he spoke, Barrett strode into the door. "Barrett, you bastard." Bucky yelled at Barrett with tears in his eyes and rushed into the door in a hurry. Jin and Shanks looked at each other, shook their heads helplessly, and walked into the door. The inside of the door was not very wide, it was a cave of about 10 square meters. There was a stone platform in the cave, on which was a box. Next to the box was a knife rack, on which was a long knife. The long sword is about 2.3 meters long, with a black back and a white blade. Like Ziyi, it has the shape of a straight blade tang sword. The handle of the knife was brown-black, and the blade was engraved with tiny patterns. Under the dim light, a bright blade light was revealed, shining coldly and appearing extremely sharp. "I want this knife, you can divide the treasure among yourselves." Seeing the long sword, Jin took a step forward, grasped the hilt, and swung it, with bursts of clanging sounds coming from the sword. "Good knife." Seeing the long sword, Barrett couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Shanks also looked at Jin with envy. He wanted it too, but when he saw the length of the sword and his own small body, he couldn't help but hang his head in frustration. Baby. The only one who did not admire the long sword was Buggy. While the three were admiring the long sword, he opened the only box in the cave. Suddenly, there was a flash of golden light, and the dark cave was filled with much light. The three of them were also brought back to their senses by the dazzling gold light. They all turned to look at the box, feeling a little dazed. The box was very large, a bit like the boxes used to store props in circuses that Barrett had seen in his previous life. Seeing such a huge box of treasure in front of them, not only Shanks, who had rarely seen treasure, but even Barrett and King were surprised, and a hint of greed arose in their hearts. But Barrett and Jin were both mature in mind and had their own clear goals, so they quickly came to their senses. Shanks, who was beside them, also came back to his senses after a brief trance. Buggy was the only one in the field. He lay down in the box, hugging the treasure with his arms around him. "Bucky, how about we just give up the treasure and you stay here alone and live with it for the rest of your life?" Seeing Bucky absorbed in it, Barrett couldn't help but make a joke. Shanks and Jin were stunned for a moment, then looked at Buggy with amusement. "Okay, I'll stay here as you said." Bucky was completely immersed in the world of treasure, and readily agreed to what Barrett said without considering the consequences at all. Barrett and the other two were extremely shocked to hear Buggy's response. They didn't expect that Buggy would actually agree. "Bucky, are you really not leaving?" Barrett narrowed his eyes and continued to ask. "Bucky, you will die here alone." Shanks yelled. "No, you just want my treasure." Bucky jumped in front of the box, opened his hands, and stared at the three people vigilantly, obviously dazzled by the treasure. Shanks and Jin were both stunned when they saw Buggy's appearance. Just as Shanks was about to step forward, he was pulled back by Barrett, who shook his head slightly at him. He had seen Buggy in this situation before with Rhine, but Rhine was doing it for Luke, while Buggy was doing it for the treasure. In this situation, anyone who approached would become his enemy. So, Barrett narrowed his eyes and said to Buggy, "Bucky, we don't want the treasure anymore. You stay here and guard it." Bucky remained unmoved and continued to look at the three people warily. "Shanks, Jin, let's go out first." Barrett drags the worried Jin and Shanks out of the cave. "My darling." When the three people disappeared, Bucky instantly lost his mind and threw himself into the big box. Barrett also brought Shanks and Jin to the foot of the mountain. "Barrett, Why don't you take Bucky with you? It's dangerous for him to be up there alone. As soon as the three of them landed, Shanks began to question. Jin also looked at Barrett with a puzzled look. Didn't you notice that something was wrong with Bucky? Barrett said calmly, Bucky is obviously bewildered by the treasure. Anyone who steps forward at that time will become his target. If we knock him out and take him away by force, he will become our mortal enemy in the future, be on guard against us all the time, and drift away from us gradually. How so? Shanks's eyes were filled with tears and his face was filled with sorrow. Then boss, what should we do now? Jin also realized the seriousness of the matter. Now thinking back to how Buggy looked just now, if they forcibly took Buggy away, perhaps the situation Barrett just said would really happen. Shanks then looked at Barrett eagerly, as if he regarded Barrett as his backbone. Don't cry, Shanks. Barrett patted Shanks and said with a smile, this isn't that difficult. Let Buggy stay up there for 2 days and starve him. We can use this opportunity to cure his greedy nature. Barrett turned to Jin and said, Jin, go to the camp and tell the captain what's going on here. Ask them to camp here. When they come, we will hold banquets here every day to make that guy Bucky hungry. After he had been hungry for a few days, he realized that treasure was not omnipotent, at least it could not fill his stomach. Quote. Yes, that bastard is dying of greed. Shanks burst into laughter and looked at the cliff fiercely. Okay, I'll go inform the captain and the master first. After hearing the plan, Jin had just stepped into the sky when a hearty laugh came from not far away. Jin boy, you don't have to go, we are already here. As soon as he finished speaking, Roger took the lead, followed by Jabba Rayleigh, and the people behind them followed with some carrying meat and some carrying wine, with smiles on their faces. Barrett, your method is correct. Let that little bastard Bucky starve for a few days first. Roger walked up to the three of them and sat down on the ground. Rayleigh and Jabba followed and sat down next to Roger. Seeing Roger and his group appear, Barrett and the other two were stunned for a moment, not understanding how Roger knew what they were doing. But Barrett soon realized that Roger might have been observing them with his observation hockey, and then sat down next to them. Captain, when did you get here? Jin and Shanks also sat obediently next to Barrett. Ha 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 ha. Roger laughed and said, we have been here since there were only 3 of you. We heard your remarks as soon as we got here. But you did a good job. That kid Bucky really needs to be dealt with. Let's starve him for a few days first. Indeed, Buggy has been so greedy for money at such a young age. Now he has been blinded by the treasure. If we don't change his mind now, something bad will definitely happen in the future. Rayleigh nodded in agreement. Yes, starve him for 3 days first, and then let him exchange treasures for food when he comes down. Do this for a month or 2, and then I'll see whether he likes treasures or food. Jabba had a dark face, gritted his teeth and looked up at the cliff viciously. He felt very unhappy. After all, Buggy learned physical skills and had been following him. Bucky's move directly slapped Jabba hard. Barrett and the other 2 looked at each other and could only mourn for Buggy in their hearts. They were sure that after what he experienced, Buggy's love for treasure would definitely drop sharply. Chapter 28 Rayleigh says domineering. At night, the moon is high in the sky. After the banquet, Rayleigh took Barrett and Jin out of the camp and went deep into the island. After the 3 of them lit a fire, they sat around it. Rayleigh looked at the 2 and spoke. Barrett, Jin, since you have accepted me as your master, I will seriously guide your training in the future. Now let me tell you about domineering. There are 3 types of hockey. One is armament hockey. Armament hockey is the hockey that can increase one's own defense and attack power. Armament hockey is mainly divided into 4 stages: hardening, entanglement, external release, and internal destruction. The first stage is easy to achieve with your current physical condition. It looks like this. Rayleigh demonstrated as he spoke, his right fist turning black, covered with a layer of armament color. Is this the color of armament? Barrett and Jin looked at Rayleigh's blackened fist with a hint of surprise. The second stage is called entanglement. Look carefully at my knife. Then, Rayleigh drew out his long sword, and the armament hockey quickly wrapped around the long sword. Barrett and the other man stared at the long sword without blinking. Soon, under the cover of Rayleigh's domineering aura, the long sword turned black and glowed in the moonlight. In the second stage, you need to use it constantly and fight a lot to increase the amount of armament color in order to achieve entanglement. In this way, your own attack power will become very strong. Rayleigh retracted his sword, raised his hand and casually slapped a stone not far away. With a loud bang, the stone broke into pieces. This is the third stage, the release of domineering aura. This stage requires accumulation. In battle and consumption, you need to keep honing your skills to increase the thickness and quality of your domineering aura. At the same time, Rayleigh's voice rang out. Then, Rayleigh clenched his fist, with domineering aura covering it, and stretched his fist in front of Barrett and the other man. Look, both of you, what is the difference between this domineering aura and the previous hardening? It's flowing. After watching carefully, Barrett and Jin discovered that the domineering aura on Rayleigh's fist seemed to have life and was constantly flowing. Rayleigh retracted his haki and said with a smile, "You are right. This is the last stage of armament haki, internal destruction. This method is also called Ryu Sakura in some places. It has extremely strong destructive power. You need your haki to reach a certain strength before you can learn this stage." Barrett and Jin nodded. Rayleigh pushed up his glasses and continued, "The second kind of haki is called observation haki, which is what Barrett asked Roger about before. Observation haki can strongly feel the power of the surrounding atmosphere, sense enemies out of sight or further predict the opponent's actions. It can also be said to be the power of hearing. As long as a person is alive, the body can make special sounds. These sounds can be used to predict the opponent's next move and position. With training, the range can be expanded. As far as I know, observation haki is also divided into 4 levels. When it is cultivated to the top level, it is possible to derive special abilities, which can be roughly divided into 2 branches. 1. This ability can be used to hear the voices of others and the voices of all things. 2. Predict the future. Roger's observation haki has awakened one of its branches, which allows him to hear the voices of all things, and it covers a wide range. Barrett did not refute after hearing what Rayleigh said. As a time traveler, he naturally knew that there were more than just these 2 abilities to see and hear. There was also the ability to perceive emotions, which is the so-called mind reading, and the ability to see through objects. But what Rayleigh said is also correct. In the original work, the most common description of observation haki is the ability to predict the future, which is very helpful in battle, and relatively many people have awakened it. However, listening to the sounds of all things is not of much help in battle. Looking at the entire One Piece, it seems that only Roger has awakened, which can be regarded as a trust of fate. As for other derivative abilities, currently only one Princess Otahime has awakened the ability to perceive emotions, and she is hidden under the sea. As for the others, either they haven't cultivated enough or they haven't been born yet. Isn't that invincible? Hearing Rayleigh's story, Jin on the side exclaimed. His head felt a little dizzy. His vision was widened again, and his head felt a little dizzy. Hee hee. Rayleigh smiled and said, "That's not the case. Although your observation haki is powerful, you also need your body to react quickly so that you can dodge. Otherwise, even if you know where someone is going to attack, you will still get hit if you can't dodge. So if you want to become a strong person, haki, body, swordsmanship or taijutsu are all indispensable." Barrett and Jin both nodded seriously. Rayleigh was right. This was indeed what the strong were competing for in a battle. Once one of them was at a disadvantage, the final result would definitely be the losing side. Well, Master just talked about observation haki and armament haki, now it's time to talk about conqueror haki. Barrett asked. At the beginning of the original work, Conqueror's haki was always called a trash remover. Later in Wano country, Conqueror's haki was whitewashed and the super move of Hachin appeared. However, Barrett didn't know much about this. He only traveled through time when he saw Kaido educating Luffy. But according to Oda's character, there should be more to the Conqueror's haki than this. There must be other settings. Now that he has the opportunity to understand it, he naturally will not let it go. Rayleigh nodded and said, Huang haki is a kind of king's qualification, which is also divided into 4 levels. Generally, the primary level of Huang haki can be used to intimidate and shock the opponent without taking action, and it can also make opponents weaker than oneself faint. However, this alone is not enough to prove the power of Conqueror's haki. Conqueror's haki cannot be cultivated. One can only rely on one's own aura to become strong. When Conqueror's haki is cultivated to a high level, Conqueror's haki can cause substantial damage. Roger can do it easily, and can also use a special method, which is Conqueror's Haki Entanglement, to attack the enemy. However, this is still too far away for you now, because in order to achieve the entanglement of Conqueror's Haki, first of all, your physical and mental strength must be strong to a certain extent, and secondly, your armament Haki must also be strengthened as soon as possible before it can be achieved. As for the top level of Conqueror's Haki, among the people I know, only Roger has achieved it. As for what's special about it, I don't know either. However, you don't have to worry, Roger will train your Conqueror Haki in the future and pass this method on to you. Barrett and the other man nodded. Okay, you all have a good understanding of the three colors of Haki. Now I will tell you how to practice armament Haki and observation Haki, so that you can awaken them as soon as possible. Lei Li pushed up his glasses and began to explain to the two of them how to cultivate domineering aura. Lei Li was indeed a famous teacher, and his explanation was very detailed, which was not inferior to Rhine's previous teaching. Hearing Rayleigh's explanation, Barrett nodded frequently. Before he met Garp, his original plan was to get the method of practicing two colors of Haki through the underground market, find a place to practice in seclusion with King, and find something to do for the Navy and the world government from time to time. But after meeting Garp's strength made him unable to muster up the slightest power to resist. His mindset suddenly changed. Instead of engaging in any conspiracy or intrigue, it would be better to become stronger quickly. Once you become strong enough, you can do what you want to do. Rayleigh spoke very slowly, and he explained some details separately in detail, which made the two of them understand more clearly and thoroughly, and they listened very carefully. As a time traveler, Barrett had already understood domineering power. With Rayleigh's careful and serious explanation, Barrett quickly grasped the key points. Jin is also gifted, otherwise he wouldn't have become the fire disaster in the original work, making Big Mom condescend to recruit him. However, Rayleigh also made a distinction and spoke in more detail about armament Haki. In Rayleigh's words, observation Haki required training. Barrett couldn't help but think of the stick that Rayleigh used to assist Luffy in training him in the original work, and he shuddered involuntarily. But this is easy to understand. Armament Haki is like the traditional Chinese martial arts that combined movement and stillness in the previous life. During the fighting process, one constantly realizes one's own strength, and eventually everything will come naturally. If you want to awaken your observation Haki, it is almost like practicing Iron Shirt. Once you are beaten enough, you will naturally be able to awaken it. As for the deeper realm after getting started, it depends on how hard you work. The master leads you to the door, but it is up to you to practice. To become a dragon or a snake depends on yourself, just like Buggy and Shanks in the original work, both were taught by the same teacher, one relied on strength, and the other relied on luck. Okay, I've finished explaining the two methods of practicing domineering. The rest is up to you to figure out on your own. Wake up early tomorrow morning. I will teach you a lesson and help you awaken your observation Haki as soon as possible. Rayleigh said, then staggered away. Boss, should we go back or practice here? After Rayleigh left, Jin asked. Why leave? Just practice here and strive to awaken as soon as possible. Barrett responded, and according to what Rayleigh said, he closed his eyes and began to practice armament Haki. Seeing this, Jin, who was standing by, quickly calmed down and began to study the armament color. For a moment, peace returned to the forest. At the same time, Buggy was struggling to drag a box of treasure to the cave entrance, and shouted to the cliff dozens of meters below, Barrett, Shanks, Jin, I am willing to share the treasure with you. Come up and take me down, I am so hungry. Chapter 29 Armament Haki Awakening. The next day, on the island. Bang bang. Two figures were fighting in an open space on the island, punching and kicking each other. The loud sound of fist collisions could be heard throughout the island. And these two people are Jabba and Barrett. Bang. During the fight, the two men punched each other, and when their fists touched, Barrett was knocked back dozens of meters, and Jabba also took a step back. Boy, I didn't realize you were so good at physical skills. Why don't you just mess with me from now on? Jabba looked at Barrett in surprise. He had always thought that Barrett was only powerful with weapons, but he didn't expect that Barrett's physical skills were also so strong. Uncle Jabba, I've already become your disciple. Besides, we're on the same boat, so I'm just following you guys. Barrett rubbed his fists and smiled at Jabba. Uncle Jabba, please use your armament hockey next so that I can feel it. As he said that, Barrett directly launched a shaving move, his figure turned into an afterimage, and punched Jabba. Boy, you are so insidious. You actually resorted to sneak attack. Jabba moved sideways to avoid Barrett's fist, then punched Barrett in the stomach with his right fist, which was covered in black. Bang! Barrett was knocked back more than 10 meters, with a trace of blood oozing from the corner of his mouth. However, the punch just now made Barrett very excited. He could feel some energy being mobilized in his body, and the cells all over his body became active rapidly. Uncle Jabba, come again. Barrett used the shaving skill again, and in an instant he was next to Jabba, twisting his fist and attacking Jabba. Fists fell like raindrops, but Jabba was not afraid at all. His hands were wrapped in a layer of armed color domineering, and he kept attacking Barrett, punching back and forth. However, Jabba was obviously retaliating maliciously, and every punch he made hit Barrett's face. Soon Barrett was beaten into a pig's head. Although Barrett was beaten badly, he seemed extremely excited. He could feel that the power in his body was almost suppressed to the limit, and it would burst out if he tried harder. Almost. Barrett's momentum grew stronger and his movements became faster. He kept swinging his fists and punching Jabba again and again. Boy, since you are still a little short of the mark, I will help you. Jabba had a sharp eye and naturally discovered Barrett's abnormality. He fought with Barrett not only because he wanted to beat Barrett up, but also to help Barrett awaken his armament color. Jabba's dual-armored weapons were darker and heavier, and his fists were no longer aimed at Barrett's face, but were intentionally hitting Barrett's entire body, making bang bang sounds. Jabba was like forging iron, refining Barrett and forging a rough piece. The fight between the two was extremely violent. Barrett was covered in blood and Jabba's clothes were torn to pieces. It was like a life-and-death battle. Captain, Uncle Rayleigh, is it really okay for them to fight like this? Not far away, Shanks, who was standing with Rayleigh and others watching the battle, looked very worried, with tension all over his little face. Shanks, you must remember, since you have chosen the sea, you must be prepared for death. What's more, Barrett is now pursuing his own strength. Roger rubbed Shanks' head and spoke calmly. Jin, did you hear that? If you want to become stronger, you need to go through a lot of life and death battles and hone yourself. When you fight with Jabba later, Jabba will have the same attitude. Rayleigh said to Jin beside him. Master, I know. Jin nodded and looked at the battle on the field with a burning gaze, without a trace of retreat in his eyes. In the arena, as the battle intensified, Barrett's injuries became more and more serious, but his momentum became stronger and stronger. Not even close. Barrett was in a state of extreme madness. Each of his punches seemed extremely violent and powerful. He punched Jabba one after another, and Jabba's face had some bruises without him noticing. But he was unwilling to give in. He could feel that the energy in his body had reached the critical point and was just a step away from a breakthrough. Jabba, has your bird been taken away? There is no strength in your fists. Barrett roared, and he gathered all his strength and kicked Jabba hard in the crotch. Bang! Jabba was shocked and lowered his hands to block the attack. The huge force made him retreat several meters. Bastard, you are going to destroy me. Jabba roared, his face full of anger, and a violent aura rose from Jabba. Boom! Jabba punched Barrett hard with his inky black arm. The violent force created a gust of wind, and the rubble on the side of him was blown away. That's it, that's the feeling. Barrett waved his fist excitedly, and in the process of punching, a layer of black film quickly condensed on his fist. Bang! When the two fists collided, a huge air wave produced a strong shock wave, and the area within a radius of dozens of meters was directly flattened by the shock wave. Ha 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 ha. Barrett laughed and stepped forward, his fists and arms consciously covered with black armament color. Now he just wanted to fight to his heart's content. When Jabba saw the armament hockey covering his arms, the corners of his mouth twitched. He thought Barrett would stop after awakening the armament hockey, but he didn't expect him to become even more violent. Damn, I'll make sure this bastard buy me some better cigars afterwards. Jabba cursed inwardly and rushed forward. The two of them exchanged punches each other, neither giving in. The fight was extremely fierce, and the area of dozens of meters was flattened by the violent collision between the two. Barrett has awakened his armament hockey. Yeah. It looks like Barrett, who has awakened his armament hockey, is not weak. He can actually fight back and forth with Boss Jabba. It looks like we have another strong man on board. Quote. The people watching the fierce battle on the sidelines couldn't help but sigh. Jin, it looks like Jabba can't fight you today. Watching the battle in the field, Rayleigh chuckled and patted Jin. Come on, let's find a place. I'll fight with you. Okay, master. Looking at Barrett, who had become much stronger in an instant, Jin was excited when he heard Rayleigh's words. He also wanted to awaken the armament color, and the combat effect would be too strong. Haha, let's go. As he spoke, Rayleigh took Jin to another part of the island, where another one-sided fight was taking place. Evening, unknown island. Yo boom 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 yo boom boom boom. 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 The island was in chaos, and all the members of Roger's pirate group were in a carnival. Countless people were twisting their bodies wildly beside the campfire, drinking wine and singing loudly. However, not far away there were two pig heads, eating unknown sea king meat. They were Barrett and Jin, who were beaten badly. Boss, I heard from Boss Jabba that as soon as your armament hockey awakened, you skipped the first stage and were able to entangle. Is that true? Jin looked at Barrett with envy. He was also beaten into a pig's head, but Barrett awakened his armament hockey while he hadn't yet. Well, that's true. This should be related to my previous intensive physical training. After all, the strength of the armament hockey is closely related to one's own physique. The stronger the physique, the stronger the armament hockey. Barrett nodded while eating beast meat. He had a strange physique. The moment the armament hockey awakened, he immediately attracted another force in his body to merge with the newly awakened armament hockey, and instantly broke through the first stage. Moreover, he could clearly feel that the power was very special. The moment it surged out, he couldn't help but have a violent thought, which seemed to be the ghost energy hidden in Barrett's body as mentioned in the original book. However, what is different is that after the battle with Jabba, the ghost energy and the armament color were completely integrated, increasing the weight of his domineering aura. Therefore, even though he had just awakened his armament hockey, his current level of domineering power was not much inferior to some of the officers on the ship. Barrett patted Jin on the shoulder and said seriously, Jin, you saw the fight between me and Mr. Jabba today, but I can tell you very clearly that Mr. Jabba didn't use his full strength. I guess he only used about half of his strength, while I almost used my full strength, so we still need to work hard on training. Boss, I know. Jin nodded. He also felt this deeply today. Rayleigh was not good at physical skills, but today he was beaten by Rayleigh without any ability to fight back, while Rayleigh only had a few tears on his clothes. Eat quickly. Use your life return to recover after eating. We still have training tomorrow. Barrett picked up another piece of meat and devoured it in big mouthfuls. Jin was not to be outdone. He picked up a piece of meat and ate it crazily, while rolling the sizzling meat over and over again. The tempting aroma filled the forest. It smells so good. I want to eat it too. A few dozen meters above their heads, Bucky, who had been hungry for more than a day, lay at the entrance of the cave, greedily inhaling the aroma that was rising up, his stomach rumbling and drooling. Barrett, Shanks, Jin, where are you? I don't want the treasure anymore. Bucky wailed weakly, tears of regret on his little face. Chapter 30. Weak Bucky. Time passed, and 3 days went by in a blink of an eye. Over the past 3 days, fierce battles broke out on the island every day. Barrett and King have almost defeated all of Roger's pirates. Now the people on the ship are afraid of them and quickly leave, making their dream of continuing the fight shattered. However, after 3 days and a lot of fighting, the two's strength improved significantly. After being beaten a lot, Jin also awakened his armament hockey. Barrett's use of armament hockey also became very proficient, and his fighting skills improved rapidly. However, to their regret, despite a lot of fighting, the two's observation hockey still had not awakened. And now the Roger pirates are about to leave. They have stayed on the island for 4 days, which is already the limit for their crew. After all, Roger's pirate group is different from other pirate groups. They will occupy territory and develop slowly. Roger goes to sea with a mission, which is to find the lost 100 years of history. Barrett, who knew the plot, naturally would not dissuade Roger. Not to mention whether Roger would listen. If Roger had not started the Great Pirate Era, the world would not riot, and it would not be of any benefit to his future. Let's go. Barrett patted Jin, who still felt a little unsatisfied, and jumped onto the pirate ship in one step. Jin looked at the island with some nostalgia, then jumped onto the boat following Barrett. Set off. Roger yelled as everyone got on board. Set off. Everyone on the boat shouted along, full of passion. Wait, Captain, wait. However, at this moment, Shanks excitedly rushed to the bow and shouted to Roger, Captain Roger, Buggy, you forgot Buggy. When everyone heard this, they were all stunned. Almost everyone looked around and found that Bucky really didn't seem to be on the boat. Where's Bucky? Doesn't this bastard know to set sail soon? Roger yelled, looking very dissatisfied. Shanks, who was next to Roger, was stunned for a moment, his face twisted quickly, and he shouted at Roger angrily, Idiot, don't you know that Buggy is still on the mountain? When everyone heard this, they instantly realized that Buggy seemed to be guarding the treasure on the mountain. Roger patted his head in embarrassment and laughed, Sorry, I forgot. Fool. Shanks roared. Ha 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 ha. Shanks, you've been following me for so long, and you just realized that Roger is an idiot. That's right. This is not the first or second time Roger has acted like a fool. Quote. Seeing Roger being scolded and looking embarrassed, everyone on the boat laughed unscrupulously and added insult to injury. Shut up. Roger yelled, and angrily shouted at Barrett and Jin, Barrett, Jin, you two bastards, if you hadn't challenged me all day and made things so chaotic, how could I have forgotten such an important thing? You two bastards, hurry up and get that person down for me. Barrett and Jin, who were watching the show, were stunned by the yelling and looked at Roger speechlessly, but did not refuse. They also wanted to see Buggy's current condition, so they stepped into the air one after another and flew directly to the treasure cave entrance. When the two arrived at the cave entrance, they were stunned when they saw Bucky's appearance. After 3 days without water and food, Bucky was leaning against the treasure chest, his whole body was weak and he was almost dying. Damn, this is the first time I've seen someone so greedy. He's reluctant to give up his treasure even when he's dying. Looking at Buggy's appearance, Barrett couldn't help but complain helplessly. Bucky's obsession with treasure is no less than our belief in becoming stronger. Boss, I'll take Buggy back first, otherwise this guy will definitely die. Jin said as he picked up Buggy and flew into the sky. Quote. Barrett was speechless. Looking at the huge box of treasure, he sighed helplessly, forget it. As a friend, I can't stop your hobbies. As he said that, Barrett closed the treasure chest and walked away carrying the box of treasure. When he returned to the ship, a group of people were surrounding Buggy, with worry on their faces, and Shanks' eyes were full of tears. Is Bucky dead? Barrett's heart skipped a beat, and he rushed forward quickly carrying the treasure. As soon as he got close, he sensed that although Buggy was weak, he still had breath, and his breath was getting stronger. He just didn't know why he hadn't woken up yet. Is it because of the treasure? Barrett rolled his eyes and yelled, Get out of the way. I have a way to wake Bucky up. When everyone heard this, they quickly stepped back. Bang! Barrett put a box of treasure directly on the ground and shouted to Buggy, Bucky, your treasure is here, why don't you get up quickly? Everyone was speechless and turned to look at Barrett. Barrett, Bugadoo. Shanks stared at Barrett with his eyes wide open, his expression full of resentment. But before he could finish his words, Bucky opened his eyes. Everyone was shocked to see Buggy waking up. Shanks' eyes almost popped out as he stared at Buggy in a daze. Roger and others were also speechless. Even in this situation, they were still thinking about the treasure. Barrett raised his head proudly, looked at Buggy with a smile and said, Bucky, you see, I saved you, so I want half of this treasure, what do you say? Pooh. It's so shameless. Everyone looked at Barrett, with only this one thought in their mind. No, I don't want the treasure anymore. I'll give it all to you. However, Bucky's reaction was beyond their expectations. When he heard the word, treasure, he reacted extremely violently. He jumped up, looked extremely panicked, and shouted with a very resistant expression. Everyone who looked at Bucky's condition had a question mark in their heads. Bucky, will he go crazy because of this? At this time, Taro stroked his chin and spoke. It's very likely that there was a child in my hometown who suddenly went crazy because he couldn't bear the stimulation. Barrett stroked his chin and nodded in agreement. Bucky. After hearing the conversation between the two, Shanks burst into tears and hugged Buggy while crying. Shanks. Buggy also broke down in tears, and cried so sadly while hugging Shanks. Roger and others turned to look at Taro and Barrett. The meaning was very clear. You two made someone cry, what should we do? Barrett, why don't you go and persuade them? Taro was a seasoned man with a quick mind. He immediately united with Roger and the others and spoke in a questioning tone. Taro, you are this. Barrett was stunned for a moment, then gave Taro a thumbs up with a dark face. He found that when it came to shamelessness, he was not even a little bit inferior to these old foxes. Then, under the gazes of the crowd, Barrett walked over to the two people hugging and asked, Bucky, Shanks, I know you two are in love and will get married in the future, but now in front of everyone, you are hugging each other so affectionately. How can the captain and his gang of singles feel embarrassed? Who's getting married? Buggy and Shanks quickly separated, glaring at Barrett and yelling with red faces. Barrett, explain to me clearly what a single person is. I already have 2 children, who the hell is a single dog? I have 3 wives. Quote. Hearing the sensitive words, Roger and his group surrounded Barrett, looking at him angrily with their fists clenched, ready for a fight. Even his master teacher Rayleigh couldn't help but have flashes of light on his glasses. Gudong Captain, I just. Looking at the indignant crowd, Barrett swallowed several times. As soon as he opened his mouth, Roger interrupted him with a roar, brothers, beat him until this bastard can't take care of himself. Arhu, you're going too far. When Barrett heard this, his hair stood on end. He jumped into the air and pointed at Roger and cursed. Arhu. Ha ha ha. What a fucking image. Quote. When everyone heard this and looked at Roger, they all couldn't hold back and burst into laughter. I am Golden Roger, not damn Arhu. Roger was furious. With a whoosh, he appeared behind Barrett and kicked Barrett on the shoulder. With a bang, Barrett was kicked towards Jabba before he could react. Boy, you dare to say that I am a single dog, prepare to die. Jabba sneered, condensed a layer of armed color on his hands, and made preparations for the flying Barrett. Hey Shiazi, stop messing around. Seeing Jabba condensing the hockey of armament, Barrett cursed and hurried to condense the hockey of armament, but it was too late. How dare you call me a black blind man? Jabba's face turned dark, his armament color became thicker, and he punched the flying Barrett hard. Bang! Barrett was once again smashed towards the only fishman on the boat, Sambal. Fishman Karate, 15,000 watts fist. Sambal took a horse stance, drew circles with his hands, and punched Barrett's head with his huge fist. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 31 Current Situation of the Navy. Damn it. Looking at the huge fist, Barrett's pupils shrank sharply, and he focused on the trajectory of Sambal's punch. Soon, he entered a special state. Left. Barrett tried his best to control his body and twisted to the right. Just at this moment, Sambal's fist hit the left side. Have you awakened your observation hockey? Sambal said sullenly, but if you want to avoid my fist, your newly awakened observation hockey is not enough. Jadaquan, 20,000 tiles. Sambal took a step forward, and a stream of water surged out of thin air. The water seemed to have life and followed Sambal's fist straight towards Barrett. Bang! Barrett had no time to react and was hit by a punch from Rayleigh. Although I'm not single, I can't offend the public and accept the beating. Rayleigh took a step forward, holding the unsheathed long sword in both hands, and smashed Barrett directly onto the wooden board of the ship with a bang. Brothers, take revenge when there is revenge, and complain when there is complaint. Taro roared, and was the first to rush to Barrett and punched Barrett who was lying on the ground. Taro, fuck you. Barrett yelled angrily. Come on. Beat Barrett to death. Quote. Soon, Barrett was overwhelmed by the crowd, including Roger and Jabba who had made a move. There were also Buggy and Shanks who acted stealthily, and even Rayleigh and King gave him a few hits from time to time. Not to mention the others. During their time on the island, Barrett had been trying to pick fights with them, and they had long wanted to beat him up. Now that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, everyone wanted to beat him up to their heart's content. Barrett didn't fight back. He took advantage of everyone to hone his newly awakened observation haki. He already had enough accumulation, whether it was observation haki or armament haki, he just lacked an opportunity. Now that the opportunity has been broken, facing the intensive attacks from everyone, although he still cannot avoid being bruised and battered, his observation haki has improved rapidly. After a short while, it has been completely stabilized at the primary stage, and he receives fewer and fewer attacks. Jin, who is on the periphery, saw Barrett realize the observation haki, his eyes turned green, and he yelled, "Arhu, hey Shiazi, and you guys are a bunch of single dogs. If you have the guts, beat me up too." With that said, Jin rushed directly into the crowd and kicked Roger, followed by Jabba, Rayleigh, Sambal, and finally he resolutely rushed into the crowd like a madman. "I am not an Arhu. I am not a blind person either." Jin suddenly aroused everyone's anger and attracted all the hatred. Within a few seconds, his entire face was beaten into a pig's head, his mask was almost broken, and his whole body swelled up. Barrett felt a chill in his heart when he saw this, and secretly gave a thumbs up to Jin. In today's world, the only person who could be besieged by Roger and his gang was probably Jin. It would be something to be proud of when he told others about it in the future. Shanks and Buggy were confused, not understanding why they wanted to get beaten up. Fortunately, Jin finally reaped the rewards of his hard work and, under tremendous pressure, awakened his observation haki. It is not known whether it was due to his racial talent, but Jin's observation haki took shape very quickly and in just a short while he surpassed Barrett. After Jin was completely stable, his observation haki was almost at the intermediate level, and Roger and the others also stopped their attacks with a refreshed mind. Barrett felt envious and jealous. "Brother, let's have a party today to celebrate this happy day." Roger laughed out loud, his laughter was extremely hearty, as if something was released. "Long live the captain!" Everyone shouted, feeling refreshed. Barrett and Jin, both with pig heads on their heads, smiled at each other. Although they were beaten, their gains were equally huge, and they happily prepared to have a big meal to celebrate. At the same time, South China Sea, Lakali Island. A huge naval ship greeted a small village. "The Navy is coming, run." Mom said the Navy is scarier than pirates. "Let's run." Quote. A group of children who were having fun at the harbor looked at the slowly approaching warship in horror and left the harbor crying. "Quickly notify the village chief. Go and inform Mr. Zepha. Hurry up and organize the people. We will never let the Navy destroy our homeland." Quote. Some adults who were chatting on the beach suddenly changed their expressions and left yelling, as if the Navy were a prehistoric beast. On the warship, 2 men and 1 woman stood at the bow, all wearing cloaks of justice and looking very imposing. However, in this situation, the 3 of them had a bitter smile and dejection on their faces, and appeared extremely silent. These 3 people are Admiral Sengoku, Navy hero Garp, and Chief of Staff Suru. "Xiao He, how many times has this happened?" Zhongguo spoke with a hint of sadness in his tone. He never expected that he, who was once so majestic and respected by the world, would one day be regarded as a ferocious beast and avoided. "I can't count them all. Along the way, whenever we approached any village, the civilians were as scared as snakes and scorpions." He smiled bitterly. Moreover, no general in the Navy dares to go out to sea now, for fear that their families or people they care about will encounter accidents. Many have submitted their resignations and applied to leave the Navy. That's not all. Garp added sullenly, the base in the New World has been captured, and many Marines have become pirates. It has become a pirate paradise. Perhaps you don't know yet. Zhongguo laughed at himself. In the past few months, not only the New World, but even the first half of the Grand Line, the 4 seas have slowly begun to fall into chaos. The world government has panicked, and the 5 elders have already given Brother Kong a death order, asking him to reverse the situation as soon as possible. But what can we do to reverse the situation? The soldiers dare not go out and keep leaving. Our huge navy is facing collapse, and we are simply unable to suppress the pirates. Zhongguo growled with a ferocious look on his face, as if he was venting his repressed psychology. "Humph, those pigs, what's the point of panicking now? Why didn't they panic when they were doing those shameful things before?" Garp sneered. He had always hated the world government and rarely listened to orders, speaking without restraint. However, Sengoku, who usually asked him to be careful with his words, nodded in agreement and said, Garp is right. They are just a bunch of pigs. They always looked down on the Navy and made things difficult for them. Now that the Navy is in trouble, those bastards with bubbles on their heads dare not leave Marihoa. They are all held back by the 5 elders. Isn't that funny? Garp and Crane were stunned for a moment and looked at Sengoku in surprise. You know, Sengoku used to be a die-hard member of the world government, but they didn't expect that one day he would call the celestial dragons pigs. Zongguo curled his lips and said, Don't look at me like that. It's not just me, even Brother Kong is scolding me. However, this time Brother Kong reached several conditions with the 5 elders, otherwise he wouldn't have let us come to find Zephyr. What conditions? He asked curiously, and Garp turned to look at Sengoku. Cough cough. Zongguo cleared his throat and said, First, give us 3 years military funds in advance to rebuild the Navy, and the future military funds will be 1.5 times the original amount and will be paid on time. Second, they agreed to our major cleanup and gave us the green light all the way. They also agreed to broadcast live the public part that he mentioned last time. Third, we have the initiative in the position of Navy Admiral. As long as the Navy headquarters approves it and CP0 investigates it, the 5 elders will give their approval. Is this true or not? They actually agreed to these conditions. Garp's eyes almost popped out of his head with disbelief. Crane on the side was also shocked. After a moment of silence, he asked, Zongguo, has something happened that forced the 5 elders to offer such generous conditions? At least half of the member states of the New World have withdrawn. Zongguo nodded and whispered, So, the 5 elders are really panicking this time, otherwise they wouldn't have put forward such generous conditions. Hee. However, this is also an opportunity for the Navy. As long as we can control it well, we can completely clean out the Navy's parasites and take power back into our own hands. Crane chuckled, his eyes gleaming with wisdom. So, we must ask Zephyr to come out. Only in this way can we reverse the decline of the Navy. Zongguo nodded. Are you going to tell the truth? Asked the Crane. Zongguo remained silent. Seeing Sengoku's silence, Garp, who was standing by, couldn't help but look gloomy. He is not stupid, he just doesn't want to think about things. The current situation of the Navy can only be reversed by Zephyr's return, but Zephyr's peace will also be broken. Listening to 2 good friends plotting against another good friend would make anyone feel uncomfortable, especially since this is a good friend who had been plotted against by them once before. After a long silence, as the warship was about to dock, Garp finally stopped being silent and shouted in a low voice, Sengoku, Suru, I don't care what you want to do, but please remember that Zephyr is our brother. You have already schemed against him once, and I don't want it to happen a second time, otherwise don't blame me for turning against you. After Garp finished speaking, he didn't care about the appearance of the 2 people, jumped off the boat with moon steps, and strode away. Sengoku, Garp isn't stupid, he just doesn't want to think about things. He glanced at Zongguo and left the warship using the moon step. Perhaps, I should be less calculating and more sincere. After a long time, Zongguo jumped off the warship and walked towards the small village with big strides. Chapter 32 Naval Movements. The arrival of Zongguo and others plunged the quiet and peaceful village into unprecedented panic. All the women and children in the village hid in their homes, and the men stood at the entrance of the village with steel forks, hoes, and kitchen knives. A middle-aged man with purple hair stood at the front without hesitation, staring straight ahead with lightning-like eyes. Here they come, the Navy is coming. A villager stretched out his hand tremblingly and pointed to the entrance of the village. There are only 3 of them, don't be afraid. There are just so many of us. Quote. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw that there were only Sengoku, Garp and Suru, and they couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Zephyr was stunned for a moment when he looked at his 3 old friends, but when he thought of what happened to his family in the Navy, his face immediately darkened and he said to the people behind him, You leave first. The 3 people coming over here are not simple. One of them is an admiral, one is a naval staff officer, and one is a naval hero. They are extremely powerful. Mr. Zephyr, we are not leaving. This is our hometown. Even if we leave here, our families will not be able to escape the clutches of the Navy villains. Mr. Zephyr, let us stay. Quote. Zepha's body froze. Thinking that he used to be a Navy admiral, he couldn't help feeling uncomfortable in his heart and nodded silently. The three men came to the entrance of the village and looked at their former comrades. They were overwhelmed with emotions. Just as they were about to speak, an old man in his 70s or 80s stepped forward, glared at the three men, and shouted, "Navy, please leave. We don't welcome villains in our village." The old man is the village chief with a face full of wrinkles. He has watched Zepha grow up since he was a child. After learning about Zepha's experience, he hated the Navy to the core. The three of them paused slightly, their faces full of bitterness. The village chief is right. We in Rabi village do not welcome the Navy. Yes, villains are not welcome in our village. Quote. As soon as the village chief stepped forward, he aroused the indignation of the crowd. All the villagers standing at the entrance of the village stared at the three Zongguos angrily. Zepha pressed his hands, looked at the three people calmly, and said lightly, "Navy, you heard it, please leave our village. Our village does not welcome any Navy. Zepha, we are here to invite you back to the Navy. Or you." As soon as Zongguo opened his mouth, the old village chief interrupted him and said, "Navy, haven't you harmed Zepha enough? Will you not stop until the whole family is dead? Everyone in the world knows what you are like in the Navy. Don't you just want to kill Zepha and his family?" The three warring states fell silent upon hearing this. Zepha didn't say anything either, he just looked at the three of them strangely. After a while, Garp looked directly at Zepha and said seriously, "Zephyr, I said I came here to reminisce about the past, do you believe me?" "I don't believe you. You lied to me." Zepha shook his head and said, "From the moment I knew everything, we can only be considered acquaintances. There is no friendship anymore, so please leave now." Garp's body trembled slightly, and he stared at Zephyr with red eyes. "What if I don't leave?" "Garp." Sengoku and Suru quickly grabbed Garp. "Then we can only face each other with life and death." Zephyr's aura surged, his eyes widened as he stared at Garp, and his iron fists were quickly covered with a thick layer of armament color. "Then let's have a fight." Garp used his arms to push away Sengoku and Crane. His eyes were as fast as lightning, and a layer of armed color was quickly wrapped on his fists. His majestic aura surged to the extreme, and he stared at Zephyr ready to strike. "You guys retreat back to the village." Zephyr yelled and evacuated the crowd. "Please be careful, Mr. Zephyr." The villagers looked at the violent Garp and knew that this was not someone they could afford to mess with, so they quickly retreated back to the village. "Garp." Sengoku and Suru shouted and tried to stop it, but Garp didn't give them any chance. He flashed and attacked directly, using his right fist with the momentum to destroy the world and try to kill Zephyr with one punch. Roar. Zephyr was not willing to be outdone. He stomped the ground with one foot and punched his former friend with all his strength. Just as the two fists were about to collide, Garp suddenly laughed, retracted his fist, dispersed all his defenses, and puffed out his chest to meet Zephyr's fist. Garp. Zephyr was horrified. He never expected that Garp would suddenly retract his fist, but he was unable to retract his strength. Bang! Zephyr's fist hit Garp hard. Garp, who had lost all his defenses, spit out blood and was knocked dozens of meters away. Sengoku and he were shocked and stared blankly at Garp, who was knocked flying. Zephyr was stunned. He didn't expect that Garp would suddenly stop and take his punch head on. Cough cough. At this time, Garp struggled to stand up, his face looked a little pale, and he staggered towards Zephyr again. "Why?" Zephyr looked at Garp with complicated eyes. "I owe you this as a friend." Garp said, "Zeph, whether you believe it or not, I only found out about your family's affairs later, but I couldn't find the culprit and I didn't dare to tell you, so I chose to remain silent. You don't owe me anything. Since we're here to reminisce, just follow me." After a moment's silence, Zephyr, with tears in his eyes, turned and walked towards the village. "Ha ha ha ha, okay." Garp laughed and quickly followed Zephyr. Zongguo was overjoyed. Just as he was about to step forward, he stopped him and said, "Zongguo, you can't go. Didn't you hear that Zephyr only called Garp? If you go now, not only will Zephyr be angry, but Garp will be angry too." As a wise general, Sengoku is not a fool. Just now, Garp moved Zephyr with his sincerity, but he was just Garp. "Xiao He, are we just going to wait like this?" Zongguo asked in a low voice. "I don't know either." When you blocked all the information and teamed up with everyone to deceive Zephyr, you should have thought that this day would come. He looked at Zhongguo with a hint of resentment in his eyes. Ah. Zhongguo sighed, we didn't want to either. We wanted to catch the culprit and let Zephyr deal with it, but the higher-ups got involved and the matter was left unresolved. Zephyr is an admiral and is extremely important to the Navy, so we had to keep it secret. The culprit can't be Mary Joa's group. He looked at Zhongguo in shock. Yes and no. Zhongguo said, after investigation by Brother Kong and I, we found that the culprit was the steward of a family above us. He was not a celestial dragon, but he was extremely favored by that family. So when we found him, the people of that family stepped forward to stop him and protect him. Why did he attack Zephyr? He frowned. Zephyr was a straightforward person and easily offended people, but he was a general after all. No matter whether they were the celestial dragons or others, they would not take the risk and kill Zephyr's family. Sengoku explained, actually, this is also related to Zephyr's character. He has always only captured pirates but never killed them, which led to many people's secrets being revealed through torture, including Mary Joa's housekeeper. You mean, the pirate group he supported was destroyed by Zephyr, which affected his interests a lot? He asked with a frown. What pirate group? It's just a large slave ship. Zhongguo said angrily. He supports a team that specializes in catching slaves and selling them, first for himself, and second for the group of pigs on it. He was silent after hearing this. After a long time, he spoke. Zhongguo, if you want Zephyr to accept you, I suggest you tell Zephyr everything, otherwise Zephyr will never forgive you. After he finished speaking, he strode into the village. Xiaohe, aren't you afraid of angering Zephyr if you go now? Seeing this, Zhongguo shouted anxiously. I'm not looking for Zephyr. I'm going to catch up with Sister Rhine and visit Luke. If you have nothing else to do, go back to the warship. When Zhongguo heard his voice, his face darkened. He suddenly realized that although he had the highest position, he was the least popular one. In desperation, he could only walk towards the warship, looking back every few steps. In May of 1491 of the Haiyuan calendar, the Navy, which had been silent for a long time, suffered a huge shock. The Navy Live broadcasted to the whole world in Marineford, publicly executing the corrupt officials in the Navy, proving its own justice and regaining some public support. Then, Admiral Sengoku and Navy hero Garp were sent to guard the G5 base city in the New World together, demonstrating the Navy's determination to suppress pirates. Finally, the Navy headquarters formed an elite training camp, appointed Admiral Zephyr as chief instructor and Rear Admiral Rhine as deputy chief instructor, issued a conscription order to the world, and countless seagulls delivered newspapers to all parts of the world. New World, on Roger's pirate ship. What kind of fruit is this? In the room, Barrett was holding a golden devil fruit with a look of confusion on his face. This was one of the first two devil fruits he encountered. One was eaten by King, and the 4 poles of heaven were produced. He kept the other one, but there was no record of this fruit in the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia given by Roger. In the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia, he only found one, which was the one he had obtained in the Navy laboratory before, an ancient species of drought, one of the 3 disasters in the original work, the mammoth. For this, he felt quite sorry for Kaido, as he not only dug out his fire disaster, but also took the fruits of his drought. Chapter 33. Divine Bird Golden Crow. Do you want to eat it or not? Barrett held the devil fruit with some hesitation on his face. As a One Piece fan, he also wanted to own a powerful fruit with the ability to destroy the world and freeze thousands of miles. For example, Barrett in the original work is extraordinary. He uses the power of the fusion fruit to directly unleash his ultimate power and create the mythical Dharmakaya world. He turns into One Punch Man and is able to defeat everyone in seconds. For example, the 3 admirals are simply moving natural disasters. Wherever Aokiji goes, the place will be frozen. If he is not careful, there will be an ice age or an ice rink. Wherever Akainu goes, there is fire. If you are not careful, a hole will appear on the ground and it will be burned through. Kizaru is the most awesome and the laziest person. He has the fastest speed, all kinds of strong lights sweeping around, and all kinds of cool moves that he can do at any time. It can be said that Kizaru is the ceiling of pretentiousness, making people envious and jealous. However, what Barrett wanted most was the thunder fruit, which was known as the strongest natural fruit, or a mythical beast like Jin. Haven't you seen that the weak Enelu in the original work, as soon as he appears on the stage, the special effects are turned on full blast, all kinds of lightning are flying all over the sky, and one move of Thor even spans the sky and the earth. The strong visual sense fills the entire screen. Moreover, the ability of the thunder fruit to enhance the observation haki can be described as overbearing. If he gets it, he can say with certainty that the strongest natural system will definitely bloom with different brilliance in his hands. However, the most amazing thing is Jin's Suzaku fruit. Since Jin ate the Suzaku fruit, his racial talent has been completely activated, his physical fitness has been greatly improved, his recovery speed is even more abnormal than Barrett, and the temperature of the flame is terrifyingly high. If he was not afraid of being exposed, he estimated that even Rayleigh, Roger and others might not be able to withstand it. However, what shocked Barrett the most was King's speed. Ever since King ate the Suzaku fruit, Barrett was no match for him in terms of speed. It was estimated that only Kizaru could compete with him. For this, Barrett secretly slapped himself countless times. What a pity, for bang. Barrett hadn't finished expressing his feelings and was about to put away the fruit when King rushed in with a newspaper. Barrett was bumped into and accidentally scraped off a small piece of the devil fruit with his teeth, which he swallowed naturally. Vomit. Barrett looked at the table and saw that there was a small piece of devil fruit missing. He panicked and hurriedly dug his throat, hoping to spit it out so that he could have a chance to get it back. Although he was also hesitating whether to eat or not, he didn't think about it now. He didn't want to gamble with his ability, or wait until he couldn't find Lei after arriving at the Sky Island. The saying that there are only people with weak abilities, but no weak abilities, is complete bullshit. Let's not talk about the innate differences between the fruits, just talk about the abilities of the fruits. If you were given a swimming fruit, you would try to develop it, and you would find that it is completely useless except for swimming around. Boss, what's going on with you? Jin looked at Barrett's strange behavior, his face full of confusion. Your uncle. Barrett wanted to cry but had no tears. At this moment, he felt that the whole world was full of malice. You ate a devil fruit. Jin looked at the small piece of devil fruit that had fallen on the table, and couldn't help but look at Bar curiously. It's not you who caused it. Barrett glared at Jin unhappily, his emotions fluctuating as a powerful and domineering aura emanated from his body. The shadow of a divine bird instantly appeared behind Barrett. The divine bird wears a crown, stands on 3 feet in the air, and holds its head high. It looks extremely arrogant and overbearing. The divine bird seems to have come from ancient times, it is ancient, overbearing, and makes people feel suffocated. Fuck. Behind. Jin was startled and pointed tremblingly behind Barrett. At that moment, his hair stood on end and he felt an indescribable sense of palpitations in his heart. He couldn't help but want to worship him, as if he had seen the king. Hearing this, Barrett frowned, and the shadow behind him disappeared. In the previous moment, he also felt something unusual, as if an inexplicable will was affecting his thinking. Barrett closed his eyes and sensed carefully. After a few minutes, Barrett opened his eyes and a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. He didn't expect that this devil fruit was so extraordinary. It was actually the bird fruit, the mythical beast type, the 3-legged golden crow form. Boss, what fruit did you eat? Why did I feel palpitations just now? Jin looked at Barrett curiously. The phantom just now did scare him. Mythical beast species, golden crow form. Barrett glanced at Jin with a smug look on his face. Although he did not get the fusion fruit in the original work, this devil fruit is undoubtedly more powerful. You know, the mythical beast type is rarer than the natural type. Moreover, his devil fruit is not Chopper's ordinary form, but a legendary creature, the supreme ruler in the ancient mythology of the Dragon Kingdom, the 3-legged golden crow, the real sun god. According to the mythological records of his previous life, he knew how extraordinary the 3-legged golden crow was. Pangu created the world and transformed himself into all things. The 3-legged golden crow was born from the sun star and became the ruler of the sun star and the master of all the stars. He was the emperor appointed by heaven and the eternal demon emperor. Moreover, the 3-legged golden crow is born with a strong physique, and is the only one that can compete with the ancestral witch in the flesh. The true fire of the sun in his body can burn mountains and boil seas, making him invincible. His speed is unparalleled in the ancient times, and he can transform himself into a rainbow, which is what is called a true instantaneous journey. What is unknown is how powerful this devil fruit can be compared to the demon emperor. Phantom beast species. Jin stared with his eyes wide open, completely stunned. He naturally recognized the fruit that Barrett ate and knew its origin, but he never thought that Barrett was so awesome that he picked up two mythical beast species directly, and each one was stronger than the other. Keep your voice down. Barrett glared at Jin in annoyance. He didn't want the news of him eating the devil fruit to spread so early. Boss, I regret this. Jin looked at Barrett sourly. He was full of pride when he first ate the Suzaku fruit, but he never thought that there are always higher mountains than you and one fruit is stronger than another. There's no use regretting. Barrett glanced at Jin and said unhappily, besides, has the Suzaku fruit you ate become weaker? Before I ate the fruit, have you forgotten how to show off? Hey, boss, let's talk business. Jin smiled awkwardly, feeling a little embarrassed. Although he had never shown his true ability in front of others, Barrett had seen it before. Moreover, since he ate the Suzaku fruit, his physique had grown significantly. Even in human form, his speed was ridiculously fast. Currently, only Rayleigh and Roger on the ship could compete with Jin at their full strength. The others were much worse, even Jabba and Barrett were no exception. I ate a devil fruit. Don't tell anyone. Barrett stopped joking and became serious. I understand, boss. Jin smiled and nodded. He had been with Barrett for a few months and had long deviated from the setting of the original work. He was a complete scoundrel and naturally understood the principle of hiding one's shortcomings and scheming others. Then, Jin took out the newspaper and handed it to Barrett. Boss, take a look for yourself. Is this today's newspaper? When Barrett saw the information in the newspaper, his pupils shrank sharply. He didn't expect that Zepha would return to the Navy and history would return to the starting point. And after his interference, Ryan also became an instructor. Boss, what should we do now? Jin nodded and looked at Barrett worriedly. Ryan knew all the information about the two people. Once Ryan told the Navy about their information, the two would have a hard time in the future. After all, Barrett's plot in Albana had caused the Navy to be in a state of panic, led to the birth of a large number of pirates, and almost caused the Navy to fall apart, completely creating a mortal feud. If Ryan tells the Navy about their information, their danger will be greatly increased. Barrett put down the newspaper, and after a moment of silence, he frowned and asked, Jin, have you found the bounty warrants for both of us? No. Jin shook his head. We haven't encountered the Navy since we joined Roger's pirates. As newcomers, the Navy doesn't know we are in Roger's pirates. Barrett thought for a moment, then patted Jin on the shoulder and said, Jin, the Rhine family returned to the Navy. I guess they were coerced into doing something, so our information cannot withstand any investigation. It won't be long before our information is exposed, and everything will come to light. By then, both the world government and the Navy will keep a close eye on us. I estimate that even the captain may not be able to protect us, and we may even implicate the Roger pirates. Therefore, we must take advantage of the time when the Navy has not recovered, leave first, and then find a place to improve our strength in peace. When our strength reaches a certain level, anyone who wants to touch us will need to carefully consider whether they are qualified. Then boss, should we leave secretly or tell our master and the others? Asked Jin. Forget it, let's leave secretly. With the character of our master and the captain, they will definitely not let us leave alone after knowing this. Besides, this place is very close to Luca Island. At our speed, it won't take much time to get there. Barrett shook his head. After spending some time with them, he came to understand Roger, Rayleigh and the others. Roger and his gang were loyal and righteous. Once they knew the true situation of Barrett and the others, they would definitely not let them leave. In this way, Roger's pirate group might be pursued endlessly. After all, Barrett was the one who almost destroyed the Navy. Okay. Jin nodded silently, his face a little gloomy and vaguely reluctant. Although he had only been on the ship for 2 months, Roger and the others had made him feel the sincere emotions while he was on the run. Boss, I'm leaving first. Jin said this and left the room disappointedly. I'm still not strong enough. Seeing Jin's lost look, Barrett sighed softly. It seems that only strength is the hard truth. Barrett laughed at himself, picked up the remaining devil fruit and swallowed it in big gulps. He did this to destroy the evidence and also because he was afraid that if he didn't eat all of the devil fruit, his abilities would increase or decrease. After all, when watching anime, most people eat almost all of the devil fruits. Cough cough. It's really disgusting. After eating, Barrett complained to himself and sat in the room, slowly adapting to his abilities. Boom. After a while, Barrett stretched out his fist, on which golden flames burned, emitting scorching heat. Barrett stretched out his finger and poked the table. Puffs of black smoke came out of the table and a hole was burned in a few seconds. Barrett then took out the painted halberd, first used the armament color to wrap a layer of domineering aura on the halberd, and then mobilized his abilities to see if he could transfer the heat to the halberd. Chapter 34 Identity Exposed. Why is this flame like this? Barrett frowned and said to himself. He had just gone through a simple test and found that apart from his stronger physique, the flames he could control were extremely ordinary. Not only was the temperature not high, but he also had no special abilities. You know, Jinwu is the legendary demon emperor who lives on the sun, and the sun's true fire is extremely overbearing. Hey, maybe it's because I just ate it. Barrett sighed quietly, a hint of regret flashing across his eyes. He felt a little regretful, wondering why he had eaten the devil fruit so late. It would have been better if he had eaten it earlier. After a few years, even if I can't develop it to awakening, at least I can use it skillfully. Not to mention anything else, my physical strength will be at least twice as strong as it is now. Late at night, Barrett and Jin sneaked out of the room and stepped directly into the sky under the moonlight. Really, why didn't you stop them? They may have reasons for having to leave. Maybe. I look forward to seeing you next time. Yes, I look forward to seeing you next time. However, what the two did not know was that as soon as they left, two tall figures walked to the bow, looking in the direction they left and talking. In the middle of the night, the entire Luca Island fell silent. The only sounds left in the entire area were the bright lights and croaking frogs in the small town. Barrett and his companion did not rush into the town, but looked around outside the town, trying to find a secluded place to spend the night. An hour later, in a forest deep in Luca Island, Jin was chewing meat while asking, "Boss, where are we going next?" Leah Island. Barrett spoke without thinking. Leah Island is a medium-sized island, but no one lives on it because it is very dangerous. Not only are there a large number of ferocious beasts on the outskirts of the island, but the center of the island is also very strange, with strong winds, volcanoes, accumulated thunder, and all kinds of celestial phenomena appearing one after another. Most people don't dare to go to the island. Even if someone goes there, few people go to the center. After all, there are strange celestial phenomena there. If you are not strong enough, going there is simply seeking death. However, for Barrett and Jin, as long as they are careful, there won't be much of a problem. Moreover, it is also an excellent environment for training, especially for the two people who have eaten devil fruits. Leah Island is a natural training ground. The exploding magma can temper the temperature of their flames. The experience of various harsh environments can allow them to quickly develop fruits between life and death and enhance their vitality. The beasts on the island can also hone their combat skills very well. The most important thing is that few people go there, and very few people can get there. It is also rich in top-quality ores for forging weapons, including red gold, sea sand, and red gold mother. He also wants to take advantage of the time to collect them so that he can forge his own weapons in the future. Boss, are you talking about the island that Master mentioned? Jin frowned and said, Master said that the weather on that island is extremely bad. If you are not careful, you will get hurt. Are you sure you want to go to that island? Barrett nodded and said, Jin, you have to know that we eat mythical beasts. If we want to develop quickly, it all depends on vitality. If we want to quickly enhance our vitality, we must constantly challenge various difficulties to activate our vitality. The reason why I chose that island is precisely because of the harsh environment of Leah Island. Okay then. Let's go to that island. Seeing that Barrett was so sure, Jin didn't say anything more and just nodded in agreement. He had been with Barrett for a few months and knew Barrett's temper very well. Once he decided to do something, he would find ways to do it and he couldn't be persuaded. Moreover, the decisions Barrett makes are extremely far-sighted. Although they may seem unreliable, he can actually gain a lot in the end. Just like when the two of them were looking for Roger's pirate group before, they searched for several months, and if Barrett hadn't insisted, he would have wanted to give up. But after finding Roger's pirate group, his gains were unimaginable. Not only did he learn the three colors of domineering, but his physical skills and kendo also made great progress. It can be said that he achieved an all-round improvement. In addition, the wisdom and vision that Barrett has demonstrated along the way have made him completely convinced of Barrett, and he will agree with whatever Barrett decides. Barrett didn't say anything more and ate the meat in big mouthfuls. After all, he had been flying at high speed for more than an hour and his physical strength was greatly depleted. Early the next morning, Barrett and Jin bought a fairly sturdy boat and some supplies at the port, and headed directly to Leah Island. It took them half a month to reach Leah Island. After the two men got off the boat, they worked together to drag the boat to the shore, and then found a relatively safe place on the edge of the island to hide the boat. Jin, the days ahead will be a challenge between life and death for us. Barrett stood beside Jin, looking at the center of Thunderfire Island with a deep and excited look. I know, boss. Jin grinned, without a trace of fear in his eyes. At the same time, Marineford, Admiral's office, Marine headquarters. Sora, Garp, Sengoku, Zephyr, and Rhine all gathered together. Sora took out a document and placed it on the table. He held up a photo of Barrett in the Endless Kingdom and faced everyone. He looked directly at Rhine with his tiger eyes and asked seriously, Rhine, I just want to ask you, was the incident in Albana done by this Douglas Barrett? When the others heard this, they all looked at Rhine with worry in their eyes. They were afraid that Rhine would do something stupid and refuse to tell the truth. Since Kong could tell the name, it was obvious that he already had some understanding of it. Sorry. Looking at Barrett's immature face in the photo, Rhine's body stiffened. She raised her head and looked around, seeing that everyone was looking at her worriedly. She knew that Barrett's affairs could no longer be concealed, so she could only silently apologize in her heart. Then she nodded to Kong and said, he did it, but Marshal Kong, how exactly he did it, to be honest, I still don't understand it. It's as if everything was planned by him, and everything went according to his design. When Garp and the other three heard this, they were all stunned for a moment. The thought was horrifying and they felt a chill down their spines. Rhine, according to our investigation, this Barrett saved you twice, and you were with him the whole time in Albana. How could you not understand how he did it? Are you trying to cover it up for him? Kong frowned and looked at Rhine with suspicion. After hearing what Kong said, the others became worried again and looked at Rhine worriedly. Marshal Kong, since you have investigated to this extent, there is no need for me to cover up. Rhine responded, to be honest, I'm still a little confused until now. I have no idea what he planned. When I realized I was being used, I could only do what he said. There was no way to escape or refuse. So do you know this Barrett? After hearing Rhine's explanation, Kong's tone calmed down, because what Rhine said was basically consistent with what they had investigated, which proved that Rhine was not lying. I don't know if his name is true or not, because the first time he told me his name was Shanks. I only know that he is only 14 years old, proficient in the 6 styles, and a swordsman. I have been with him for so long, but he is like a mystery to me. I am no match for him in terms of brains or strength. Quote. Rhine was silent for a moment, with a bitter look on his face, and spoke softly. Hearing this, everyone was stunned for a moment, their expressions extremely shocked, mainly because of Barrett's age and strength, which horrified them. Kong's face also had a gloomy look, and he said darkly, Rhine is right, Barrett is indeed only 14 years old. Barrett was the captain of the Bullet Squad of the Endless War country. After a battle when he was 10 years old, Barrett disappeared. The next time he appeared was in Punk Hazard, where he rescued a fugitive named Abel while Kaido was causing trouble in the laboratory. The second time he appeared was in Albana, where he planned the Albana incident. At that time, he was only 13 years old. Now, according to the news, he and a young boy named Jin joined the Roger Pirates 2 months ago, and both of them became Rayleigh's disciples and both knew the 3 colors of hockey. Among them, Jin is an animal-type ability user who can fly. The strength of the two is comparable to that of a vice admiral of the Navy, or even stronger. Most importantly, on the same day our Navy released the information, Barrett and Jin disappeared from Roger's ship and were never found. From this we can see that Barrett is not only powerful, but also extremely sharp and cunning. Quote. If such a dangerous person is allowed to grow, he will be a great threat to the world and the Navy. Sora's voice grew deeper and deeper, his expression becoming very serious. So, we have to capture Barrett as soon as possible. After listening to Barrett's experience, everyone looked shocked, and Rhine also secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Although Barrett had used her in Albana, he also saved her twice. Such favors cannot be repaid easily. Now she was under pressure and told him some information about Barrett, but she also didn't want Barrett to be caught. Marshal Kong, Barrett is indeed extremely dangerous, but we cannot offer a reward. After a while, he analyzed, because the two things Barrett did should not be spread out, especially the Albana incident. Once it is spread out, the situation we have worked so hard to create may face collapse again. The others nodded in agreement, and Sengoku then spoke up. I think what Xiaohei said is right. Barrett has never had any bounty before, and now he has left the Roger Pirates. If we suddenly offer a bounty, it will seem very abrupt. There are many smart and ambitious people in this world. Once the affairs of Albana are discovered, someone will definitely use it to make a fuss. Therefore, Brother Kong, the only way to deal with this matter is for CP to secretly search for Barrett and have him arrested. The others nodded in agreement. Chapter 35 Leah Island. Rhine, do you have any opinion about Barrett? After a moment of silence, Sora's gaze turned to Rhine again. Marshal Kong, you think too highly of me. With Barrett's intelligence, if I could guess what he would do next, I wouldn't have almost died in Albana. Rhine smiled bitterly. Boss Kong, please stop targeting sister-in-law Rhine. Now Zepha and sister-in-law Rhine are both instructors for new recruits. What else do you have to worry about? Kong asked Rhine questions again and again, which immediately made Garp unhappy. He stared at Kong with dissatisfaction in his tiger eyes. Brother Kong, you know Rhine's personality. She is not the kind of person who thinks deeply. You should stop making things difficult for her. Zhongguo echoed. Marshal Kong, those new recruits who have not yet arrived in the elite training camp are all here for Brother Zepha. Is it really okay for you to do this? He said quietly. Zepha and Rhine didn't say anything, but looked at the three of them with gratitude. I didn't, don't talk nonsense. A trace of embarrassment flashed across Kong's face, and then he took out 2 devil fruits and placed them on the table, smiling and said to Zepha and Rhine, Zephyr, Rhine, these are the 2 devil fruits I promised you. Thank you, Marshal Kong. Zepha and Rhine saluted together. Zhongguo and he smiled at each other. This was one of the conditions they fought for Zepha's family. Boss Kong, what kind of fruit is this? Let me make it clear first, the trash ones won't do. Luke is my apprentice. Garp spoke while picking his nose. The others also looked towards Sora. Zeph, don't listen to Garp. Here is an animal type, dragon fruit, ancient species, Tyrannosaurus rex form, and one is a parahuman type, phantom fruit. Kong glared at Garp fiercely, then looked at Zephyr and Rhine with a smile on his face. Boss Kong, you are being too perfunctory. The ancient seed is okay, but what the hell is that phantom fruit? You have the nerve to take it out. Garp said dissatisfiedly. Zephyr's face looked a little gloomy. He also felt that what Garp said was right. The illusion fruit was indeed useless. Zhongguo and he also looked unhappy and glanced at Kong with a little dissatisfaction. Kong looked embarrassed and a little aggrieved. He really wanted to say that being able to obtain an ancient seed was the result of his hard work. He was about to open his mouth to explain further. Unexpectedly, Rhine said excitedly, Marshal Kong, are you sure that devil fruit is the phantom fruit? Sora nodded blankly. The others also looked at Rhine in confusion. Okay then, these are the 2 devil fruits. Seeing Kong nod, Rhine nodded excitedly. Sister Rhine, don't be anxious. Boss Kong can't handle this matter. I will go to the Holy Land to get it for you. Cap said anxiously. He thought Rhine was compromising. That's Sister Rhine. We'll find a way to get you a new one. He also agreed eagerly. Sengoku and an embarrassed Sora nodded together. Zepha looked at Rhine with some concern. Seeing everyone's concerned eyes, Rhine was moved and explained with a smile on his face, everyone, don't underestimate this devil fruit. If Luke's physique was not too weak and he needed to use an animal-type devil fruit to strengthen his physique, I would have given this devil fruit to Luke. This devil fruit is not weak. After saying that, Ryan winked playfully. Everyone was stunned again. From Ryan's expression, it was obvious that Ryan was not hiding it, but really wanted this devil fruit. Sister Ryan, can you tell us about this devil fruit? He asked curiously. The others also became interested and turned to look at Ryan. There's no rule that says clones can't materialize and attack. Ryan asked with a mysterious smile. The people present were not fools. After hearing Ryan's words, they immediately realized that their thoughts had been limited by the previous user of the illusion fruit. Then everyone gave Ryan a thumbs up. Ryan didn't say anything more. He took a bite of the devil fruit in front of everyone. His distorted expression made everyone present laugh in good faith. Afterwards, after Kong made a phone call, the world government's CP organization became busy and a plan to capture Barrett and King was quickly formed. New World, Leah Island. Boom boom. In the center of Leah Island, a volcano erupted. Countless huge fireballs rushed into the sky from the crater. Black smoke filled the entire sky. The area within a radius of several kilometers was covered with boiling, red-hot magma, which made a gurgling sound and released high temperatures unscrupulously. A few hundred meters away from the lava, Barrett and Jin stood together panting, looking at the lava not far away with their bodies in disarray. Boss, are you sure you can still bear it? Jin looked at Barrett, whose whole body was burned red, his eyes full of worry. This was their bad luck. They had not had time to adapt to everything. Only 1 week after they arrived, the volcano suddenly erupted, leaving them no chance to prepare. He was better off, as he had eaten the devil fruit several months earlier than Barrett. Although the temperature of his flame was not as high as that of magma, it was not much different. Moreover, his speed and observation haki were stronger than Barrett's. He was not hit head-on, and except for being a little embarrassed, he was not injured at all. But Barrett was not so lucky. Not only had he just eaten the devil fruit and had not had time to develop it, his luck was also extremely bad and he was hit by a blast of lava. If it weren't for his strong physique and the fire ability of the mythical beast, he would have been crippled if not dead. But now he was also seriously injured. Not only was his whole body burned, but there was also a hint of meat on his body. His long flowing golden hair turned directly into short hair, and only strips of cloth were left on his clothes. Several bones were broken where he was hit by the lava. But now, he still wants to continue to experience the magma. Jin, don't worry about me. Now is the opportunity to hone your skills. Barrett endured the pain of the burns and slowly approached the magma. He found that being burned by the magma not only increased his physical strength, but also increased the temperature of the flames. Because just now, he was hit by magma, the temperature of the flames rose rapidly, and his resistance to the magma flames increased rapidly, which gave him the power to resist briefly and escape from the magma. Okay. Then I'll go get some meat. Jin didn't try to persuade him anymore and just leapt up into the sky. Because he knew Barrett's temper, instead of trying to persuade him here, he might as well go get some meat to replenish his energy. The training begins now. After Jin left, Barrett did not use the armament haki. He just gritted his teeth and walked towards the edge of the magma step by step. The scorching temperature almost dried him out, but he also felt that the temperature he could control was rising step by step. When he was 100 meters away from the magma, Barrett had to stop, because even here, he found that the temperature was frighteningly high, far beyond his endurance. Barrett could only give up moving forward and use his heart to sense the temperature at the moment in order to increase the temperature he could mobilize. Time flies, and a few hours have passed. The bright moon comes with a sky full of stars, illuminating the earth with its silvery light. Barrett slowly opened his eyes with a hint of surprise on his face. His guess was correct. If he wanted to increase the temperature of the fruit, he could only increase it faster by experiencing it himself. In just a few hours, the temperature of his own flame had increased a little. Sure enough, there are no shortcuts for the strong. Looking at the crater a few hundred meters away, Barrett's eyes were determined. He planned to enter the volcano to practice after becoming familiar with the laws of volcanic eruptions. After staying for a while, Barrett turned and left, and found Jin at the edge of a small woods a few hundred meters away from him. At this time, Jin was lighting a bonfire and roasting a piece of unknown animal meat. The meat was sizzling and oozing oil, and the aroma of meat filled the air. Barrett, who was already starving, couldn't help swallowing his saliva and walked quickly towards Jin. Boss, eat one piece first. When Jin saw Barrett coming, he smiled and cut off a piece of meat and handed it to Barrett. Barrett took the barbecue without hesitation and started to eat it. He had consumed too much energy before and was seriously injured. He urgently needed meat to replenish his energy and recover from his injuries. Seeing this, Jin smiled and cut off a piece of meat. While eating, he asked, Boss, how do you feel about your training this time? Not bad, it's a small improvement. Barrett smiled and said, Jin, I've always wanted to ask you, what is the intensity of your race's flame? I saw you were quite relaxed just now. Boss, to be honest, I don't really know the answer to your question, but the magma during the day can indeed hurt me. Maybe it's because I ate the Suzaku fruit. Jin explained while eating meat. Then can the innate flame of your race increase its temperature? Barrett asked curiously. No, if our fire could be strengthened, my race wouldn't be living so miserably. Jin shook his head with a look of sadness and bitterness on his face. Barrett was stunned for a moment. What Jin said was right. If Lunalia could really increase the temperature of the flame, then there would be no need for the celestial dragons. Why would they need to hide their identities and hide everywhere? It's okay. I will get it back with you in the future. Barrett patted Jin's shoulder and spoke softly to comfort him. Jin nodded heavily and ate the meat with tears in his eyes. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 36, Cultivation. 3 months later, Leah Island. Rumbling. Silver snakes were dancing wildly in the sky, and countless lightning bolts struck the lightning area on the island. The sound of crackling was endless, and deep pits were blown out on the ground, making it uneven. Boss, do we really want to use lightning to forge our bodies? I feel like it's a little unreliable. I always feel like I'll be struck to death if I'm not careful. Jin looked at the dense lightning in front of him and swallowed his saliva continuously. It was obvious how panicked he was. Looking at the dense thunder, Barrett also felt panicked. After all, thunder body training was only a method he knew from reading some novels in his previous life, and he didn't know whether it was reliable or not. But when he thought that this world was originally an extraordinary world, and that he had a strong physique and had eaten the golden crow fruit, he felt unwilling to give up if he did not try. Jin, there are no shortcuts to becoming strong. Barrett suppressed the panic in his heart, took out his halberd, walked to the edge of the minefield, and pointed the halberd at the sky. He planned to try to guide a bolt of lightning to see if it could have the effect of tempering his body. Anyway, with his current physique, a bolt of lightning could not kill him. Boom. Soon, a bolt of lightning was induced and struck He-Che. A powerful electric current quickly transmitted into Barrett's body. The electric current crackled in his body, stimulating the cells in his body and making him feel comfortable and numb all over. Barrett could feel that under the stimulation of electric current, he could feel his cells becoming active and his body's strength was slowly increasing. Jin behind him was staring at him closely, and if there was anything wrong with Barrett, he would quickly drag him out. Call. My guess was indeed correct. The electric current dissipated, Barrett let out a long sigh, and a smile appeared on his face. Then, Barrett turned around and said to Jin, Jin, my guess was correct. Lightning can indeed increase the strength of the body. Come and try it. It is good. Jin's obsession with becoming stronger was no less than Barrett's. Without any hesitation, he walked to a place not far from Barrett and followed the same method, drawing a bolt of lightning towards himself. Barrett put away his halberd and went straight into the minefield. He could feel that the lightning did not cause much damage to him and did not consume much of his physical strength. However, he also knew his limits and only took a few steps without going deeper. Not long after, Jin felt the benefits of being struck by lightning. Seeing Barrett entering the minefield, he followed him into the minefield without hesitation and began to practice with Barrett in peace. An hour later, Jin walked out of the minefield with a tired face, glanced at Barrett who was buried in the lightning, and after resting for a while, he flew to the outside, preparing to get some animal meat. Time flies, and before I knew it, 2 years have passed. Deep in the minefield, endless electric lights flashed, the electric current crackled, and the silvery white light was very dazzling. In the center of the minefield, Barrett and Jin were constantly expanding inside. The sound of the long swords colliding made a ding-ding sound, Coupled with the roar of thunder, it was as if they were composing a new piece of music. More than 10 minutes later, Barrett and Jin separated and walked shirtless in the dense thunder and lightning. The lightning struck them without any reaction, just like messengers of thunder. Boss, I feel like the lightning here has no effect on me anymore. After 2 years of training on Leah Island, Jin temporarily removed all his disguises. His hair became white and his wings became black. His height also grew to nearly 3.5 meters. His handsome face showed a hint of regret and depression. Since it's useless, let's go to the volcano. The volcano can still have a great tempering effect on us. Barrett nodded. After 2 years, his height reached about 4.5 meters and his appearance became much more mature. Although he was not as handsome as Jin, he was stronger. Moreover, under his deliberate control, his figure was well proportioned and his height was higher than the normal one in the original work. He was no longer big and strong and top-heavy. It's a pity that the lightning is a little weak. It would be better if it was stronger. After walking out of the minefield, Jin looked back with regret. It's really a pity. Barrett pursed his lips. Through the tempering of lightning in the past 2 years, the physical strength of the two has increased a lot, and their domineering aura has improved by leaps and bounds. Jin's armament hockey has reached the second stage, and his observation hockey has improved by leaps and bounds to the advanced level. His domineering hockey has also reached the intermediate level after occasional sparring with Barrett. As for Kendo, he is even close to the peak of a swordsman. Under Barrett's intentional or unintentional indoctrination, Jin's devil fruit developed rapidly. The flame was no longer pure red, but red with blue. Jin's control over the flame was also very high, and the temperature of the flame was almost the same as that of magma. Not only was the temperature high, it also had a certain effect in repairing injuries, gradually approaching the Nanming Lihuo, one of the 10 great divine fires in the prehistoric times. Jin also shamelessly called his own flame the Nanming Lihuo. This made Barrett despise it for a long time, but after 2 years of being struck by lightning, Barrett himself had stabilized his armament hockey at the peak of the second stage, and was only one step away from being able to release it. His conqueror hockey had even reached the advanced peak, and his observation hockey was relatively poor, having only reached the intermediate level. He is also very extraordinary in the development of devil fruits. He uses the golden crow in his previous life's memory as a magic board, and keeps sharpening it in the thunder. His speed is now on par with Jin, and the temperature of the flame is also increasing rapidly. Although it still has not reached the temperature of magma, it is not much different. Moreover, his flame is purer, and it is golden when it appears. Now it has even integrated the power of thunder, making it more domineering, and faintly has some meaning of the sun's true fire. Naturally, he also shamelessly calls it the sun's true flame. For this reason, Jin would naturally not give up the opportunity to despise. Let's go. Let's go to the volcano. Barrett patted Cinder and walked towards the volcano. Jin withdrew his gaze and quickly followed Barrett. The two chatted along the way and it didn't take much time for them to reach the foot of the volcano. Boss, are you sure you want to enter the volcano to practice? Jin looked at the volcano emitting black smoke, his face looking extremely serious. Yes. Barrett nodded. Not only me, but you too. If we want to increase the temperature of the flames, entering the volcano to practice is the best option at the moment. Barrett patted Jin with a smile on his face and said, don't worry. With our current strength, there won't be any problem training in there. Instead of worrying about it, you might as well get some beast meat so that you can recover from your injuries. That's true. Jin smiled and said, then you go and practice first, boss. I'll go get some beast meat and play with my old friends in the forest to see how strong you are. After all, fighting can sharpen yourself. Indeed, although there is great terror between life and death, there is also great fortune. Barrett nodded in agreement. What Jin said was indeed right. In addition to hard training, one also needs to go through countless life and death battles. Only in this way can one become a truly strong man. Then boss, be careful. I'll bring food over later. After Jin finished speaking, he flew up into the sky without any reluctance and headed towards the forest of Leah Island. It's time for me to do my life and death test. Barrett took a deep breath, a puff of black smoke came out from under his feet, and he strode towards the crater with big strides. Barrett looked down at the interior of the volcano. The magma inside was bubbling with a gurgling, sound, coloring the bottom of the mountain red. The scorching heat continued to bake the rock walls inside. From time to time, rocks fell into the magma and were melted directly with a gurgling sound. Barrett stepped on the moon steps, avoided the thick smoke, and slowly descended to the bottom of the volcano. Then a heat wave hit him. Even though his fire resistance was greatly enhanced, he still felt a burning sensation. Barrett clenched his fist and put his hand directly into the lava. After a moment, a burning sensation came from his arm, causing him to feel a slight pain. A few minutes later, Barrett took out his arm and carefully sensed the temperature just now, but after a long time, the temperature he could control still did not increase. Damn, if you're not crazy, you can't live. Looking at the rolling magma, Barrett gritted his teeth, took off the painted halberd and placed it on a stone platform, wrapped himself with the sun's true flame, and walked directly into the magma. Gurgle, gurgle. The magma seemed to be attracted by something and kept surging towards Barrett. Barrett's whole body was quickly wrapped up and sank quickly, leaving only his head outside. Hiss, hiss. The burning sensation of the magma made Barrett feel very painful. He kept gasping for breath, and his physical strength was quickly consumed as he used his abilities. But he could also feel that in the intersection and resistance with the magma, he could clearly feel that his development of the golden crow fruit was slowly improving, and his physical strength and the temperature of the flames were slowly getting stronger. Although the improvement was not significant, he felt relieved. At least there was still room for improvement. Hoo-hoo. A few minutes later, Barrett jumped onto the stone platform, breathing heavily. In just a few minutes, his physical strength was almost exhausted, and his whole body was burned red by the magma. It seems that we can only take it slowly. After pausing for a moment, Barrett picked up the red-painted halberd and flew out of the crater. At night, Jin arrived as promised, and after Barrett came, he jumped into the volcano. Barrett used his life return to recover some of his strength, then flew towards the forest with his halberd. In the following time, Barrett and Jin did this every day, and the time they stayed in the magma became longer and longer. The development of their fruits became more and more profound, and their combat skills also improved rapidly. Half a year later, the temperature of Cinder's flames reached the same level as the magma. There was no point staying in the volcano any longer, so he simply gave up the tempering of the volcano, entered the center of the forest, and began an endless battle. Barrett, on the contrary, did not fight again. Instead, he focused on increasing the temperature of his own flames and stayed in the volcano to practice. Chapter 37 Training. 1 year later, Leah Island Forest. Roar. Roar. Barrett walked into the jungle, and countless deafening roars resounded across the entire island. Barrett narrowed his eyes because he felt a sense of pressure from these roars. The endless jungle is like a black hole filled with light. Not only is it endless, it also contains countless deadly crises. Interesting. Barrett's lips curled up, a hint of interest appeared on his face, and he was no longer in a hurry to find Jin. He was ready to try out the results of this year. During this year, his strength increased again. Through the tempering in the volcano, his golden crow fruit seemed to have reached a bottleneck. After the temperature of the sun's true fire reached the same level as the magma, it could no longer be increased. However, after a year of hard training, not only did his physique become much stronger, but even his armament haki also became much stronger. Although it still hadn't reached the level of advanced externalization, with the fusion of his own ghost energy, he had reached the limit of intermediate armament haki, and the thickness of his armament haki was several times that of the same level of armament haki. Moreover, with each volcanic eruption, his observation haki improved to a higher level. Although he could not catch up with Jin, the gap was not far behind. As for halberd techniques, he combined the family heritage and the advantages of his own devil fruit to create many powerful moves. According to his estimation, his overall strength is now comparable to that of an elite vice admiral in the Navy. Barrett used his observation haki and slowly walked towards the center of the forest. He could sense that the roar that had just brought him pressure came from the center of the forest. After walking for a distance, Barrett stopped and looked to the right front with lightning eyes. It was a giant python, purple-red all over, its body as thick as a bucket. It coiled its body, raised its triangular head and stared at Barrett coldly. "I don't want you to disrupt my pace," Barrett whispered, slowly pulling out the painted halberd from his back. The armed color domineering quickly wrapped around the painted halberd, and the color of the painted halberd became a little darker. Po Jun Yan Luo. Barrett swung his halberd and smashed it hard at the python. A black and gold halberd light about 3 meters long flew towards the python with a scorching temperature. Roar. The giant python roared. It didn't expect that the ant in front of it would dare to attack. Its huge body began to move, and it used its snake head to hit the halberd. Puff. Zzz. The halberd blade collided with the snake's head, but there was no loud impact sound. The giant python didn't even have time to scream before the entire snake's head was split into two and melted directly by the scorching heat of the halberd blade. Only half of the body was left moving on the ground a few times. Barrett calmly put away his halberd and continued walking towards the center of the forest. A few minutes later, Barrett arrived at the center of the forest. He held the halberd in both hands and vigilantly used his observation hockey to sense his surroundings. Over there. With the help of his observation hockey, Barrett quickly discovered the aura that was exerting pressure on him. In the dense forest on the left, a pair of cold eyes were staring at him. Roar. It was deafening and visible to the naked eye. With just one roar, the trees in the dense forest were broken by the air wave, and the grass was blown away, revealing the moist and fresh soil. A huge figure then appeared. The ferocious head, heavy leather armor, powerful limbs, terrifying claws and thick tail were extremely similar to the crocodiles he had imagined, except that the one in front of him was more than 10 meters tall as a small mountain. Found you. Barrett licked his lips with a hint of excitement on his face. The aura from the crocodile was exactly the same as what he had sensed before, and now the pressure the crocodile gave him was much greater than before. Big guy, let you help me verify the results of my achievements in the past few years. With a loud roar, Barrett took the lead in attacking with a painted halberd. His body turned into an afterimage and instantly came to the crocodile. Barrett leapt up and swung his halberd with tremendous force. The golden flame and the armament color merged into one, entwined around the halberd, and smashed heavily into the crocodile. Roar. The crocodile roared angrily, and a layer of black appeared on its claws, blocking Barrett's halberd. Bang! The halberd claws collided, causing a violent collision and generating a powerful air wave. The surrounding area of 10 meters was flattened, and the flames attached to the halberd were dispersed. The trees around Barrett turned into charcoal in an instant, and the land under his feet was also melted a little. Armament hockey, interesting. Seeing that the crocodile had armament color, Barrett was not worried, but seemed extremely happy. Roar. With a roar, the crocodile seemed to be enraged. It opened its bloody mouth, revealing its sharp teeth, and bit towards Barrett. Big guy, you can't eat me like this. Barrett leapt forward to avoid the crocodile's bloody mouth, and grasped the halberd with both hands, with golden flames quickly wrapping around it. With a whoosh sound, a black and gold flame emerged from the painted halberd, and the painted halberd instantly turned black and gold. Po Jun, burning hell. Barrett's whole body was burning with flames. He jumped high, holding the halberd in both hands, and chopped at the crocodile's head with the halberd. Roar. The crocodile roared, and its entire head turned black, and it pushed hard towards Barrett. With a bang, all the flames of the painted halberd burst out, and the tip of the halberd hit the crocodile's head heavily. The black and red flames were shattered and the flames scattered. Gurgle, gurgle. The scorching flames instantly turned the area within dozens of meters into a sea of fire, and the ground into a magma field. Roar. The crocodile roared, and its animal instinct made it sense danger. Its foreclaws were quickly covered with a layer of armor color, turning all black. Dong dong. The crocodile moved all four of its claws and ran in the lava, trying to escape from here. If I let you escape, how will I survive in the future? Barrett flashed and stood in front of the crocodile, and a circle of black and gold flames burned on the halberd again. Po Jun, Flame Dragon. Barrett swung dozens of halberds in an instant, and the halberd blades gathered together to form a black and gold flaming dragon that was more than 10 meters long, roaring and rushing towards the crocodile. Roar. The crocodile roared, and its head quickly turned black, and it rushed towards the black and gold dragon condensed by the sword energy. Bang! An even stronger impact than before erupted, and a huge heat wave swept across the surrounding area within 100 meters. Countless trees were affected and ignited with raging fires. A giant dragon circled, and the area within 100 meters quickly turned into a fire area. Roar. The crocodile howled in pain as a gash several meters long was cut on its head. Under the influence of high temperature, no blood flowed out of the wound. Instead, it was directly roasted. A rich aroma of meat quickly filled the forest. Gu dong. Smelling the aroma of meat, Barrett swallowed his saliva and looked at the crocodile with greedy eyes. Roar. The crocodile roared, and with its front paws wrapped in armament color, it slapped Barrett in anger. Big guy, since you dare to extend your claws, then leave them there. Barrett smiled grimly, his halberd ignited with black flames. He stepped sideways to avoid the crocodile's claw, and then slashed at the swinging crocodile's claw with a knife. Nourishes. Due to the high temperature and the sharpness of the halberd, the crocodile's claw was cut off instantly and fell to the ground with a bang. Roar. The giant crocodile roared in pain, its body twisting continuously, and its huge tail swept wildly, flames flying, countless burning trees and rocks were swept away, and the forest was ignited everywhere. The location of the Sea of Fire was once again, and everything within hundreds of meters turned into a sea of fire. This is a great place, we can't let it be ruined. Barrett murmured. Broken army. Flame blade. His figure flashed, and he held the halberd in both hands, and chopped the giant crocodile's neck heavily with the halberd tip. A powerful black and gold halberd light burst out on the giant crocodile's neck. Roar. The giant crocodile sensed it and quickly formed armament hockey on its neck, bursting out with tremendous strength. Die to me. Barrett's eyes narrowed, and a huge momentum seemed to overturn the world. He increased the strength in his hands, and withstood the crocodile's huge force, pressing down the crocodile's head, forming a huge energy at the crocodile's neck. With a snap, the painted halberd could not bear the weight and broke along with the giant crocodile's head. The halberd head still had its power and fell heavily to the ground. With a bang, a piece of the ground collapsed. The violent explosion caused the ground to shake. It seems that I must forge weapons after leaving. Looking at the broken halberd in his hand, a trace of helplessness flashed across Barrett's face. This iron halberd was forged a few years ago, but he never expected that it would be completely broken today. How can such a good place be destroyed like this? Then, Barrett looked at the fire growing more and more fiercely around him, frowned slightly, and then grasped the broken halberd, slashed it around, and the source of the fire was quickly extinguished. After a few minutes, only traces of a battle were left. Collapsed ground, scorched ground, wood and stone, and the corpse of a giant crocodile that exuded an enticing fragrance. Boss. At this moment, Jin, covered in red and white flames, fell from the sky and landed in front of Barrett. Looking at the falling figure, Barrett's eyes fixed. Although Jin has not grown taller, he exudes a fierce aura compared to a year ago. There are many scars on his naked upper body, the most eye-catching of which is a wound from the left chest to the waist. It is obviously a fatal wound. However, he did not say much. He could sense that Jin's aura at this moment was only slightly weaker than his, and was very strong. Come on, I'll treat you to barbecue. Barrett just smiled softly and patted Jin on the shoulder. Okay. Jin laughed and slowly fell from the air with Barrett. Chapter 38 Leaving Leah Island. After a while, the two men sat on a huge rock, each holding a piece of crocodile meat and devouring it in big mouthfuls. Boss, you killed this giant crocodile. Now there is only one overlord left in this forest. Should we kill it while we're at it? Jin said this with a smile while eating barbecue. No need. This is a good place. It can serve as a trial ground for our future team. There are no strong opponents in the trial ground. How can we make them feel pressured? Barrett chuckled. Boss, are you ready to leave? Jin was stunned for a moment, but quickly reacted and looked at Barrett with great surprise. Yes, don't you think it's a bit too weak with just the two of us? Barrett said with a smile, besides, there is nothing on this island that can give us a higher level of training. We should also go and see the real strong men in this world, build a ship that truly belongs to us, and accompany us towards glory. Ha 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 ha. Jin laughed, then, boss, what's the name of our pirate group? Not urgent. Barrett shook his head and smiled. Right now, the most important thing to us is our companions. Without a navigator, we can't find the way on the sea. Without a boatman, our ship can't go far. Without a chef, we can only eat those damn barbecues. So, we need some partners. Yes, Yes, Jin took a fierce bite of the barbecue and said, once we find the chef, I will never eat barbecue again. Hee hee. Barrett chuckled, took a big bite of the barbecue, and said, so, it won't be long before we say goodbye to this damn barbecue. Goodbye. Jin raised the meat in his hand, roared, then held the barbecue and swallowed it in big mouthfuls, showing no sign of not wanting to eat the barbecue. Barrett laughed and did the same thing, devouring the barbecue in big mouthfuls. Half an hour later, they had eaten almost half of the giant crocodile's tens of thousands of pounds of meat, and the two men stopped. Boss, look at what kind of fruit you have. Suddenly, Jin took out a devil fruit and handed it to Barrett. How did you get here? Barrett took the devil fruit and looked at Jin in surprise. 3 months ago, I killed another overlord and picked it up by accident when I was leaving. Jin shrugged, looking nonchalant. Why can't I pick it up? Barrett's mouth twitched, mainly because Jin's expression was too Versailles. Then he took the devil fruit and examined it. The devil fruit is silver-black in color and looks a bit like a cantaloupe, with some circular lines connected together and winding straight up. What? After a moment, a look of surprise appeared on Barrett's face. This devil fruit was exactly the spring fruit of Bellamy, the crazy admirer of Doflamingo in the original work. This devil fruit was not weak. The explosive force generated after the spring was compressed was extremely strong. Compared with the unawakened Nika fruit, it was only inferior in extensibility. However, this is also very suitable for those who are strong in physical skills. Bellamy in the original work was actually not badly developed, but compared to Luffy's protagonist Halo, he was still far behind. What's more, Bellamy is just a small gangster, and he is far inferior in both physical strength and fighting skills. It's a pity that the most suitable person, according to the current time period, has already pledged allegiance to Doflamingo. Then, Barrett handed the spring fruit to Jin, and said with a smile, Jin, this is the Parahuman spring fruit, it has great potential and is very suitable for strong physical warriors. You should keep it first and find a suitable owner for it in the future. Jin nodded, took the devil fruit and put it away, then asked, then, boss, where are we going next? After a moment of silence, Barrett spoke, let's go to Luca Island and see if there is a bounty on our way. If not, we will take a merchant ship from Luca Island to the Four Seas. There are some good people there, but I don't know if they have formed their own pirate groups yet. See hi, shouldn't we look for the navigator and the cook first? Besides, how could there be strong people in a place like Sea-Hai? Jin muttered. Ha 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 ha. Hearing this, Barrett laughed and said, Jin, have you forgotten that the captain and the master are from the Four Seas? In addition, the Admiral Zepha, the Navy hero, the Marshal and many generals are also from the Four Seas. The Four Seas are not weak, they are just severely suppressed by the world government and lack the foresight. Once they are given a chance, their strength will not be worse than anyone else. Barrett looked directly at Jin and said seriously, Jin, we can be proud, and no one can break our spine, but we must not be arrogant, because that will only make us lost, and one day we will die from our own arrogance. So, don't underestimate anyone. Before you know it, it may be the person you once underestimated who dealt you the final blow. Quote. Hearing this, Jin nodded carefully. Let's go. It's time for us to leave. Seeing that Jin had listened, Barrett smiled with satisfaction. In the original work, Jin may have been influenced by Kaido and has an extremely arrogant temperament, but he has a trace of inferiority and cowardice in his bones. But now that he is with Barrett, Jin is no longer the same as in the original work. The current Jin has awakened the conqueror's haki, and the cowardice in his bones has long been eliminated. He is more confident, but also extremely arrogant. He doesn't think highly of anyone except those who are stronger than him. Barrett had noticed this situation on Roger's ship, but he didn't expect that Jin would become more and more arrogant as time went by. Barrett didn't want his brother to turn his pride into arrogance, so he warned him against it. It is good. Jin nodded and flew out of the forest with Barrett. A few minutes later, the two came to a wooden house at the edge of the forest, which was the residence built by Jin. Boss, wait for me, I'll go change my clothes first. Jin said something hurriedly to Barrett and went into the cabin. Brother, believe me, one day, I will let you appear in front of the world openly. Looking at the wooden house, Barrett muttered to himself, he knew what kind of clothes Jin was going to wear. It was nothing more than clothes used to cover up Jin's identity, but now their strength was not enough, so Jin could only hide. After a while, Jin came out of the cabin, took out the permanent pointer with a wry smile, and handed it to Barrett. Boss, the permanent pointer seems to be broken. Do you still remember Luca's way? Brother, it's been more than 3 years. I can't remember the way even if I have a good brain. Barrett was stunned for a moment and looked at Jin helplessly. He didn't expect that the permanent pointer he bought on Luca Island was actually a counterfeit product. It broke after just a few years. What should we do now? Jin also looked helpless. What else can we do? Let's go check out the ship first. Barrett sighed. A few minutes later, the two men carried out the boat that had been hidden for 3 years. When the two men saw the condition of the ship, their faces turned green. The ship, which had been hidden for 3 years, had been corroded in many places and could not withstand any strong waves. The two men did not know how to repair the ship and could only stare at it. Boss, why don't you just fly? Looking at the decayed ship, Jin was at a loss as to what to do and simply wanted to give up. What the hell are you doing flying? What if we encounter wind and waves? Barrett glared at Jin unhappily. The two were not familiar with the area around Blade Island, and if they flew without a boat, they might encounter natural disasters at any time. You have to know that this is the Grand Line, and they might encounter all kinds of strange weather. If they don't have a place to stay by then, they will both be in great trouble. After all, they are both poor swimmers and dare not fall into water. What should we do then? Jin asked with eyes wide open. Forget it, let's just throw the boat into the sea and try it first. Barrett sighed helplessly. Then he walked to the side of the boat and carried it into the sea. Jin flew up to the sky and turned into the divine bird Vermilion Bird. He flapped his wings, creating streams of warm wind that slowly blew the boat away from the coast. He stopped flapping his wings until the boat was blown to deeper water. He returned to the shore and stood with Barrett, staring at the boat carefully to see if it would sink. 10 minutes later, seeing that the ship did not sink, Barrett breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Come on, Jin, let's get on board." As he spoke, Barrett turned into a shadow and climbed onto the bow in an instant. Jin followed closely and landed beside Barrett, smiling and asking, "Boss, where are we going next?" "Just go with the flow." Barrett shrugged, walked to the mast, and prepared to raise the sail. Snapped. Jin slapped his forehead, thinking about their previous experience, wandering around like two bored flies. But at that time, their ship was a new ship that had just been produced not long ago, and Barrett had not yet eaten the devil fruit. It was not this rotten ship that could not withstand the strong waves. He did not dare to use much force when flapping his wings just now, for fear that the ship would be destroyed and the two landlubbers would have to fly. Chapter 39 The Man with White Beard. The sun is shining brightly, and the sun is shining its light wantonly, illuminating the endless sea. In the unknown waters, Barrett stood at the bow, looking at the horizon expectantly. Before they knew it, the two had been sailing on the sea for a week, but they had no idea where they were, they only knew that they were still on the Grand Line. Because the bad weather told them, and their ship, after experiencing many storms, was broken even more seriously, and sinking was only a matter of time. However, what left them speechless was that the luck of both of them seemed to be not very good. After a week, not to mention inhabited islands, they hadn't even encountered any pirates. Barrett could only ask Jin to check around every day to see if there were any inhabited islands, and whether there were any pirates or other ships around. Barrett stayed behind to guard the sinking site. "Boss, I found a ship. It's a pirate ship." Not long after, Jin returned from the horizon with an excitement on his face that had not been seen for a long time. "Where?" Barrett was equally happy and smiled happily. "About 20 kilometers west of us, the ship is sailing westward." Jin stood at the bow and pointed to the west. "Wait, I'll get my things, and then we'll leave." Barrett rushed into the cabin excitedly, picked up the things that had been packed long ago, and ran back to the bow. "Brother, lead the way." Back at the bow, Barrett immediately urged. "Boss, we don't want the boat anymore." Looking at Barrett's expression, Jin asked blankly. "Bullshit. Believe it or not, if there is another storm, this ship will be finished." Barrett looked at Jin unhappily. "Yes, then boss, follow me." Jin nodded and flew into the sky, with Barrett following closely behind with a pair of golden wings extending from his back. After searching for half an hour, the two finally saw a pirate ship near a small island. They flew towards the island at a high speed with excitement. But when the two flew over the island, their faces turned ugly. Deep in the island, there was a fire shooting into the sky. It was obvious that something bad had happened. Boss, it seems that this group of people are not good people. Jin looked into the distance with a gloomy face. Due to his long-term contact with Barrett, Jin was not as indifferent to life as in the original work, at least he was not so indifferent to civilians. Hee hee. Barrett laughed coldly and said, then let's go and see how evil these people are. As he spoke, Barrett turned into a stream of light in the air and flew towards the fire at a high speed. Jin flapped his wings gently, and with a whoosh, a white mark was left in the air, following closely behind Barrett. A moment later, the two men landed at the entrance of a village, one after the other. However, at this time, the village was already in ruins, with corpses everywhere, and the land was soaked with blood and turned black. Looking at everything in front of him, Barrett couldn't help but feel a little cold. Jin on the side also had a gloomy face. Although he didn't think he was a good person, he knew he couldn't do such a cruel and inhumane thing and kill innocent people. Haha, I didn't expect there was a woman here. You demons will be killed sooner or later. Ha 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 ha. I don't know if I was killed or not, but I know you can't see it. Go away, you beast. I'm going to die. Suddenly, there was a noise coming from a small room not far from the village entrance. Barrett immediately released his observation hockey to lock onto the location of the room. He flashed around, kicked the door open with a bang, and walked into the room. There was a man and a woman in the room. The man was shirtless and looked very ugly. The girl was young, with long golden hair. Her blue eyes were filled with tears, and her pretty, delicate face was full of panic, tension, pain and resentment. The two men looked at Barrett who walked in, their faces full of shock and surprise. What you just said is wrong. She could see you being killed. Barrett looked at the man indifferently, then he shook his body and pierced the man's throat with a finger. Ho ho. The man covered his throat, looked at Barrett in disbelief, and then slowly fell into a pool of blood. Barrett glanced at the dead man calmly and turned away. And many more. However, just as he reached the door, the girl's voice rang out in the room. No need to thank me, I'm a pirate too, I just can't stand it. Barrett didn't stop, but came to Jin's side in a flash. Let's go. Let's go meet this group of people. Barrett strode forward and walked towards the village. Okay, boss. Jin curled up his lips into a smile and followed Barrett. Not long after the two men left, the girl who was in the room before quickly ran out of the room, looked at the two figures, and quickly followed them. A few minutes later, Barrett and his companion arrived at the center of the village. Ha ha ha, Rock, this village is much better than the previous one, and the women are more attractive than those in the previous villages. Ha ha ha, yeah, it's just not very playable. Quote. A group of pirates all gathered in the center of the village, some were laughing and discussing, some were moving boxes, and some were doing unspeakable things to a dying woman. On the stone platform in the village, a bearded man was drinking wine with a smile on his face. Next to him, a man wearing a white turban was wiping a long sword with his head down. Ah ha ha, there are still men in this village. You didn't run away, and you even dared to show up. Quote. The open appearance of Barrett and his companion naturally attracted the attention of some pirates, who laughed at the two of them unscrupulously. Jin, there are too many small fry. Don't you think it's a bit noisy? And it's time to practice your domineering hockey. Barrett sneered. It's time to practice. Jin smiled coldly, his eyes narrowed, and a domineering will emanated from him. Invisible energy instantly swept towards the group of pirates. The pirates froze, rolled their eyes, and fell to the ground in a faint. The Huang, lust. The bearded man and the middle-aged man sitting on the stone platform suddenly stood up and looked at Jin in disbelief. Who are you and why are you attacking us? The bearded man asked with a serious face. Ha ha ha, do pirates need a reason to take action? Barrett laughed and looked at the two men coldly with a teasing look in his eyes. The bearded man and the middle-aged man's breathing stagnated, a trace of embarrassment flashed across their faces, and they obviously didn't know how to refute. If you're a pirate, you should be prepared for death. Barrett smiled coldly, and a layer of golden flame quickly wrapped around his fist. Asshole, what are you doing? Stop it. Looking at Barrett's actions, the bearded man's eyebrows twitched and he shouted loudly. Go to hell. A bunch of trash. Bar's eyes were cold and he was not moved at all. He punched out, and the center of the village, within a radius of dozens of meters, instantly turned into a pool of magma. The dead pirates were instantly submerged in the magma and turned into ashes before they could even struggle. Asshole, you are looking for death. Don't you know that our big beard pirates are under the Whitebeard pirates? The bearded man who dodged looked at Barrett with a gloomy face and roared in a timid manner. Not far from him, a middle-aged man was holding a long knife, staring at Barrett vigilantly. Boss. When Jin heard that the other party was Whitebeard's man, he couldn't help but turn his head to look at Barrett. Whitebeard. Barrett murmured in a low voice. He didn't look at Jin, but slowly raised his head and looked directly at the bearded man. I'll give you a chance. Notify Whitebeard and ask him to come. Let him see if I dare to kill you in front of him. Barrett walked towards the bearded man step by step, and with every step he took, his aura increased. Boom. After a few steps, an arrogant and domineering aura burst out from him, and the invisible hegemonic power spread instantly. How possible? The bearded man was directly overwhelmed by Barrett's domineering color and knelt on the ground. The middle-aged man on the other side rolled his eyes and fainted. Yeah, isn't it just Whitebeard? What's so scary about that? Looking at Barrett's wild and domineering figure, Jin's body shook and his eyes gradually became firm. Behind the two of them, the girl in the room looked at the bearded man who had been rampant in their village and now knelt down with an expression of disbelief on her face. Take out the Den Den Mushi and call Whitebeard. At least before that, you won't die. Barrett retracted his domineering look and looked at the bearded man coldly. You will regret it. The bearded man pointed at Barrett with trembling hands. Call out. Barrett turned his palm into a knife and cut off the bearded man's entire arm. The scorching temperature instantly burned his arm, and no blood flowed out. What? The severe pain made the bearded man roll on the ground, cold sweat pouring out of his forehead. I hate it when people point fingers at me. Barrett didn't care about the bearded man's pain at all. He stepped on his face and spoke indifferently. Last chance, call Whitebeard. Chapter 40 Girl. Hiss. The bearded man was so frightened by Barrett's cold gaze that he trembled. He took out a Den Den Mushi with his only remaining hand and made a call. Brew brew. Mary, do you have something to ask me? After a while, a lazy voice came from the phone. Is it the Whitebeard guy? Before the bearded man could reply, Barrett took the Den Den Mushi and spoke calmly. Who are you? Where is my Li? The voice on the phone was a little anxious and gloomy. Are you talking about the bearded man? He's under my feet. Barrett said lightly. Asshole, don't you know he's a member of our Whitebeard pirates? An angry voice came from the phone. I know, but so what? You only have 3 days. I'll be waiting for you here. After that, Barrett put some force on his feet and said coldly to the bearded man, tell him the location of this island. Captain scored, I'm on Somon Island, please come and save me. The bearded man cried loudly with tears. Skuyard. Hearing the bearded man say the name, Barrett couldn't help but think of the record about scored in the original work. A sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. He took the Den Den Mushi and said provocatively, Scored, let me tell you, I used to be a member of Roger's pirate group. Asshole, just wait for me. On the phone, Scored was stunned for a moment and then let out an angry roar. I am waiting. Barrett whispered, threw away the Den Den Mushi, then turned his palm into a knife. A few red lights flashed, and the bearded man was directly chopped into a human pig. Ho ho. The severe pain made the bearded man's eyes roll back and he fainted. Boss, what should we do with this guy? At this time, Jin came over carrying a middle-aged man whose limbs were broken and who was unconscious. Kill him. Barrett glanced at the middle-aged man indifferently and spoke coldly. Click. Without saying much, Jin crushed the middle-aged man's larynx and threw him into the magma created by Barrett. Puff. The middle-aged man's flesh and blood burned rapidly, and in a moment, it turned into ashes and merged into the magma. Let's go. Let's go check the ship first and erase the pirate flags and emblems. Barrett patted Jin on the shoulder and strode towards the shore. Jin glanced at the girl hiding in a building, then followed Barrett away with a smile. The girl looked at the direction the two men left, gritted her teeth, and ran in the direction Barrett and the other man left. Dash. A few minutes later, Barrett and his companion came to the shore, jumped directly onto the pirate ship. The pirates who stayed on the pirate ship looked at the two and were all stunned. Bastards, who are you? How dare you board our ship? A pirate shouted viciously. Looking at the dozen or so pirates on the ship, Barrett's eyes fixed and he released a domineering look. Bang bang. More than a dozen pirates were all knocked unconscious. Jin, kill him and throw him into the sea. Barrett said casually, leapt up, and tore off the pirate flag. The temperature in his hand rose and the pirate flag was instantly burned to ashes. Dong dong. Jin did as he was told and crushed the throats of more than a dozen pirates and threw them into the sea. Not far from the shore, the girl looked at the cruel methods of the two men, a hint of fear and hesitation flashed in her eyes, and she didn't know whether she should step forward. After a moment, the girl seemed to have made a decision. She ran to the shore and shouted loudly, "Can you take me away with you? We are pirates, aren't you afraid?" Barrett looked at the girl with a smile. He had always known that the girl was following them, but he just didn't want to pay any attention to her. He didn't expect that the girl would dare to approach them after seeing their explosive methods. Jin was also watching with interest. "You are different from them," the girl shouted. "What's the difference?" Barrett laughed. "I'm just like them. I'm a pirate. The most annoying people on the sea. If you see us, we'll kill too. But I don't have a home anymore." The girl pursed her lips, tears glistened in her eyes, and tears kept streaming down her face. Seeing this, the smiles on Barrett and Jin's faces quickly disappeared. They had witnessed the tragic situation in the village with their own eyes, and Barrett had even used his observation hockey to scan the area, but did not find any other living people. As a time traveler, he could not do such a thing, nor could he tolerate it, so he became furious and directly slaughtered the group of pirates. And this girl is the only living person on the island. If the girl had not shown up, he would not have cared. But now that she has shown up, his conscience prevents him from saying no. "We can take you with us when we leave, and I will drop you off at the next inhabited island." After a while, Barrett spoke. Jin knew Barrett, so he just smiled and didn't say much. Thanks. Seeing Barrett agreed, the girl kept bowing. "Jin, let's go and erase the pirate logo first, then drive the ship to another part of the island and hide it. Then we'll wait for Whitebeard here and go see the style of the top strong men together." Barrett patted Jin on the shoulder and jumped off the bow. Whitebeard. There was a burning look in Jin's eyes, and a strong fighting spirit was emanating from his body. Then he jumped off the bow and worked together to clean up the pirate logo of the ship. The girl looked at the two people's strange movements, felt a little curious, and slowly walked towards them. "When I saw the two men cleaning the pirate logo, I couldn't help but ask curiously, why are you cleaning the pirate logo? Aren't you pirates? Our pirate group hasn't even been established yet." Barley turned around and smiled. "Cleaning up the signs can save us a lot of trouble." Looking at Barrett's sunny smile, the girl blushed slightly, and then whispered, "Can I join you?" "Of course." Barrett smiled without turning his head. Hearing this, the girl nodded heavily and started cleaning up with Barrett and the others. Soon, all the pirate signs outside the pirate ship were cleared away. Then the three of them split up and began to clean up the rooms on the ship. Barrett was responsible for clearing all the pirate signs in the cabin, Jin was responsible for collecting treasures, and the girl was responsible for clearing away the clothes and quilts of the previous group of pirates. After about an hour, the three of them piled all the clothes and quilts on the shore. Jin stretched out his hand and pointed, and a flame came out from his hand and shot towards the piled up clothes and quilts. "You can shoot fire anyway." The girl looked at Jin, who was wrapped tightly, with curiosity on her face. She was already shocked by Barrett's ability to create magma, but she didn't expect that Jin could also use fire, which made her even more curious. Before Jin could speak, Barrett smiled and said, "This is the ability of the devil fruit. We ate the devil fruit, so we can emit flames." "What is a devil fruit?" The girl blinked her big watery eyes and stared at Barrett blankly. Looking at the lovely appearance of the girl, Barrett couldn't help but feel a touch of favor in his heart, and explained with a smile, "That is the secret treasure of the sea. It looks extremely strange, some look like fruits, and some are strange in shape. After eating it, you will have various powers, some will turn into animals, some will emit lightning and fire. However, the devil fruit was cursed by the sea. Anyone who ate the devil fruit would be rejected by the sea and could no longer swim. Once they came into contact with sea water, they would become completely powerless. Oh, the girl nodded, not quite understanding. Barrett didn't say anything more. It was true that he liked beautiful women, but he was not the kind of person who would be unable to walk when he saw a beautiful woman. Then, Barrett said to Jin, Jin, let's go to the village to see if there is a sea chart or an eternal compass, otherwise we will leave and drift around again. Yes. Jin nodded seriously. By the way, let's see if there is any food. I just took a look on the boat and there is very little food, but a lot of wine. Well, I can take you there. Hearing the conversation between the two, the girl at the side said, I am familiar with the village, and I know where what you are looking for is, but I hope you can help me move the bodies of the villagers. I want to bury them. As she spoke, the girl, with tears in her eyes, bowed deeply to Barrett and Jin. Okay, you help us and we help you, it's a fair deal. Barrett agreed without hesitation. Thank you. The girl bowed deeply to the two men again. Let's go. Barrett strode towards the village. He wanted to finish these things as soon as possible. After everything was arranged, he could wait for the arrival of the Whitebeard pirates with peace of mind. Jin and the girl looked at each other and followed one after the other. A few minutes later, the girl brought the two men to a house. In that house, a middle-aged man was lying on the ground with his eyes wide open, and a middle-aged woman was lying naked on the bed. Barrett and Jin quickly turned their heads away, while the girl, with tears in her eyes, wrapped the woman in a blanket without saying a word. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories, and never miss out on a great listen.